Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So today I am sitting, well, first of all, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. So today I'm sitting down with Ustad Tabari. And Tabari is a registered alcohol drug technician as well as a clinical social worker. He's the founder of the Lamps of Light project based in Riverside, Southern California, which is a nonprofit established to help individuals and their families overcome the challenges of behavioral and chemical addictions with a specialization in Muslim communities. He's also associated with and has worked with various organizations, including the Institute of Knowledge, the Khalil Center, and the Taiba Foundation. And currently, he serves as the chaplain for the Institute of Knowledge at UCLA.
Yes.
So, yeah, inshallah. And also, he's a very good khatib who I have the privilege of being able to listen to many times at Masjid Omar. So, inshallah, today we'll be discussing not only the path and journey that Ustad Tabari took to become who he is today, but we'll also be discussing the nature of addiction for young men and Muslim and contextualize what that means to us as Muslims in America. Specifically the experiences you had are in SoCal, so we'll talk about that a little bit. And we'll just talk about life a little bit because I know
Let's do it.
he's very fun to talk about life with.
Let's do it.
So I've got to ask before we dive into anything else. First question, first and foremost.
Bismillah.
Is coffee an addiction?
Caffeine.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not necessarily coffee, but it is the caffeine that it is in a DSM-5 as it can be addictive, yes.
And DSM-5 is the...
So it is the standard diagnostic manual for, how to know if somebody has a disorder or not.
Gotcha. Have you ever had anyone come up to you and be like, I'm addicted to coffee?
I mean, in general, people say it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They'll say, this is something I just can't give it up.
Yeah.
And the body does get dependent upon it, so people, if they don't have their coffee, they, have tremors or they become irritable and they just can't function. And so there's this weaning off period. So yeah, it can happen. It can definitely happen.
Yeah. I just had to bring that up because everyone calls just like, I can't live without my coffee. And I'm like,
yeah.
Doesn't make sense to me, but
Yeah, it's part of it.
Yeah. So I wanted to start off by first talking about, I guess one of the things that I've always kind of contextualized for myself when it comes to individuals who work in the healthcare field, that particularly whether it's psychology or being a psychologist or a chaplain or in your case, a clinical social worker and the kind of work you do, where does usually the motivation for these things come from? And as well as what was the first experiences that allow someone to kind of discover what they kind of want to do when it comes to like addiction psychology or when it comes to health research? And the reason why I'm talking about this stuff in that way is because I personally also am on the health track, and I've always I always thought it was a make or break kind of moment for me. I have to know I want to do this or if I don't want to do this. So what I realized is a lot of individuals in the health field generally feel a very similar way. It's not money driven usually. It's not, this is something that I need to do for my livelihood. So usually people are trying to find an actual deep rooted meaning as what does this mean to me and how do I connect to the work that I'm doing? So starting with that, I'm curious, when was the first time in your life that you kind of figured out this is something as a career that I'm interested in, or this is something as an interest of educational type interest or any kind of I want to look more into this? When was that first occurrence in your life?
I think the first inkling of it, it happened in my early 20s, 2021, because I was going through this process of making Taiba. I was coming from the streets, and there were people that were following me from the streets into Islam. And anybody that's done any of that kind of work, they know that it's intensive, right? To sit down with someone who, they have an English tongue and you have to teach them Fatiha, and you have to be comfortable enough with making them uncomfortable. It takes a certain amount of connection. It takes a certain amount of trust. It takes a certain amount of, just being with that person to be able to say, no, it's ghayril maghdubi, right? It's not gayril, right? If you're going to teach them correctly, and you might have to do that over and over and over again. And so sometimes you might touch them and say, no, it's like this. Okay, now say it again. Now say it again. Now say it again. Now say it again. Keep saying it. there's something that has to happen between you and that person, right? That was the first time that it kind of opened for me, like working with individuals one on one and explaining, complicated concepts, like telling a person about Islam is to change their worldview.
Yeah.
So that's when it first happened to me,
Yeah.
so my ex-wife, she became Muslim, and then her brother became Muslim, and then all of his friends became Muslim. And I was the one that had the most experience, the most knowledge, at that time. That was my first inkling of teaching people and leading people. That's when it first happened for me.
Yeah. So you said as you were coming off the streets,
Yeah.
that, and we'll dive into this a little bit as well, but people were following you there.
Yeah.
How did you kind of, now I guess we can dive in a little bit, even going further back, because now I'm interested in what's going further back.
Yeah.
Is you were helping individuals come off the streets in that regard, and you were connecting them with Islam. What was your story with, being involved in those kind of things? Like I personally have watched a full video about like your story, but like when did that involvement for you start? And when did Islam kind of work into it as well for you to come off the streets by like as well? And did someone help you do that the same way that you helped others do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, so like I got to start at the beginning.
Yeah,
right?
might as
Like
well.
I would have to start at the beginning to explain all of that. So of course, my father became Muslim in the 70s, and he was he accepted Islam. He went on to kind of be a leader in the community. And, I remember that, I remember, so I'm young, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, but I remember my father being busy. And I remember like when he would take me with him, I'd be around other Muslims, and, I would hear snippets of conversations about, different things. So Islam was like stamped on me from the beginning. And another thing is that I didn't go to public school. I didn't go to public school until the 5th grade. And that's really actually when everything started to change. So, I mean, I can remember I was 5 years old when I learned Ayat al-Kursi. I have always loved Allah and His Messenger. Like it's something that came natural for me, and it never left, no matter what I was doing. All right. So I want that to be the first point of this story. No matter what I was doing, I always loved Allah and His Messenger. Always. All right. I believed in Judgment Day. As a matter of fact, I had a dream when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old about the Judgment Day. Like that's the impact that it had on me. It was like everybody was lined up on this big street, and we were like, I saw the clouds moving, and I just knew that something was coming. And when I woke up, I knew it was like, oh, I think I just saw Judgment Day. So at a very young age, Islam has been part and parcel of my life. So fast forward a little bit. I lost my father at 6 years old. I was about 6 years old. He was brutally murdered. His children still haven't recovered from that, actually. Because he was our safe haven. He was the one who taught my mother Islam. He was the one that made sure that we were surrounded by Muslims. And I just remember like everything breaking down, after he was gone. It was like, it wasn't the same sense of safety. I never had the water cut off while he was in the house. We never had electricity cut off when he was in the house. We never had to worry about transportation. And I remember all of those things happening. Like after he passed away, I remember the water getting shut off. Like we had to go next door and ask the neighbor for water. I remember living without electricity. I remember living in houses that were like roach infested. And I didn't have that experience when he was alive, So eventually, my mother remarried, but it wasn't the same. I mean, it wasn't the same for a lot of different reasons. But my own personal experience was traumatic, right? Because he was, our stepfather he was abusive. There's no other way to say it. He was abusive. When I think about it now, especially with my training now, I always like, how can you be like that to children? How? You know what I mean? And it was very, very traumatic. And so this is setting the stage for me not wanting to be around the house. right? So this is happening very early on. By the time I'm 8 years old, 9 years old, I'm already wishing that I could be far away from this place. Right? But I don't have a way out. I don't have a way out. I'm 9 years old. Where am I going to go? You know what I mean? And families, a lot of times what happens in the house, it stays in the house. It's a secret. If people were to know this, social services were to know this, if your teachers at school were to know this, somebody might go to jail. And so, you're trying to protect yourself. You're trying to protect your caregivers. You're trying to normalize dysfunction. And you have no idea, like this is suppression that is going to lead to an explosion.
Yeah.
And so, the first inkling of, non-Muslims living a totally different life and being attracted to them living like what I would at that time consider to be normal, right? They had TVs in their house. We didn't have a TV. They might have telephones. At that time, we didn't have a telephone. They had a washer and dryer. I didn't have a washer and dryer. They had a brand new couch, beautiful couch, cable. I never had cable in my house until I moved out and got it myself. Right. So not only was there trauma, like physical abuse, verbal abuse happening in the house, there was extreme poverty. So in 5th grade, I'm put in school. This was my first time in public school, and I'm introduced to a completely different way of life all at once. I remember the first thing I remember was the way the boys and the girls used to look at each other. The boys would look at the girls as they walked by. This is 5th grade, but it's 5th grade, 6th grade, and 7th grade, I think, in this building, right? So it's like middle school from 5th through 8th, maybe something like that. Yeah. So you're seeing older people, they're interacting with the girls in the school, and it's like, I never saw that, right? I didn't understand this animalistic attraction between the sexes because I had no exposure. So to me, that was foreign, and it was, I could never do that, right? Like I was shy of that, The second thing that was the music. 5th grade, Michael Jackson, he's on all the pop charts, you know what I mean? Right. And, for some of your listeners, like, I'm giving it away, but New Edition, right? The pop group, the R&B group, New Edition at that time. And so the kids are playing it in school. They got the Walkmans, they're playing, they got the big boom boxes on the radios. On the school buses, right? Yeah. And so this is my first introduction, and it's scary, but it's also exciting, right? It's exciting. So now I began listening to music in the house. All right. I began listening to music in the house. I don't understand the lyrics, not yet, but just the music, because I'm being socialized this way. I'm being socialized. Another thing that I'm being socialized into is the name brands. Up until that point, there were no name brands. There were no name brands. I didn't know. You know what I mean? I didn't know anything about that. But when you start being distinguished from your peers based upon the brand shoes you wear or the brand clothes you wear, it comes to your attention instantly. You got to do something about it. And that really, really became important, like right around the 7th grade. 7th grade? No. I can't wear Payless shoes. I need Adidas. Right. Or I need Nikes. Right. Or this is right around the time when the Jordans first came out. And I think they might have been like $60 or $70 or something like that back then. Yeah. But it was the thing. And for some of my peers, it was nothing. Their parents could go and buy. My parents, no way. It wasn't going to happen. It was not going to happen. And so, as time goes on, I think, like it all kind of broke loose, like right around the 9th grade. Yeah. 9th grade, I'm in high school. And, I got to have it, man. It's that simple. I got to have it. You know what I mean? I'm running track. And so I'm getting a little bit different attention, right? From the girls, right? And, they make little comments, they say little things, and, they're cues, how you have to act, kind of clothes you got to drive, the kind of clothes you got to have, right? Who you got to hang out with, the music you got to listen to,
Yeah.
right? There's these cues, and you got to keep up with the cues. And I played football also one year. That's kind of like really when it was like, I want this. I want this. It wasn't that I did not want Dean. It wasn't that. It was what I wanted. I was experiencing what I thought was normal.
Right.
And I wanted that. So,
in a way, you're also experiencing exactly what Islam tells us to disconnect from. Because
exactly.
It kind of seems like as you were going about your like aging journey, which I think a lot of people go through, like from the 6th grade to like 10th, 11th, maybe even 12th, is like this period of time where all of a sudden they used to live a life of like almost like, alhamdulillah, for a lot of people, like sometimes disconnect, like family centric.
Shelter.
Yeah, shelter.
Yeah.
Like nothing, the influence that someone and something has on you
Right.
is not as much as when you enter those spheres.
Yeah.
And now things are starting to like encroach into your like mental space as
That's
like
right.
this is something that deserves attention and I need to address it in a way. So now I think you're getting to the point where you're saying like you need to have it and you need to address it. The question is, how do you make that happen?
And another thing that's happening is that I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like I have always been like that. Like when I reflect back,
Yeah.
when I made up my mind to do something,
You did it.
I'm going to do it.
Yep.
Right. And that has had tragic,
Sure.
tragic outcomes in
Yeah.
my life. Right. But this was at a time where I was like, no, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, yeah, like 10th grade was when like everything changed. 10th grade. I had a girlfriend.
Right.
Right. Alhamdulillah, we're not doing anything. Right. We're not transgressing the major boundary, which is sex. Right.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. Right. But we're spending time together. I enjoy her company.
Yeah.
I really like her. You know what I mean? And, it's a break away from home. Home is dysfunctional. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that vocabulary, but I just don't want to be there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just don't want to be there. So eventually one thing leads to another. Well, I fall out with my stepfather and, I'm gone. I'm in the wind. This is 10th grade. Maybe I'm getting ready to go into the 11th grade. So I'm like 16, 17, somewhere like that. Now, up to that point, I had a job. I was working at a grocery store. I had bought a couple of cars. I bought a car. I drove it for a little while. Then it broke down. Then I bought another one and drove it for a little while. It broke down. I'm buying these cars, and it's just, it's the freedom that I'm after. I'm after the freedom. But I'm hanging around certain figures. I'm hanging around people that they're making money from the streets. And they're attracting girls. They're attracting attention. They know where all the parties are. They know where the clubs are. And they've got a way of making money that, I don't know what the side effects are.
Yeah.
Right. I just want that. I don't know the side effects, but I want that. I want the fresh clothes. I want I want to be able to do what I want when I want to do it the way they are. That's what I want. And so I was leaving the house. I think I was going to a football game or to a track meet or something like that. And my stepfather was like, "No, you're not going." And I was just like, "Yes, I am." And so I left. Right, I left, but I know I can't come back.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm out there now. Now I'm out there, and so I'm living. I start living with. I had a friend that I could go and stay with for a little while, and then I ended up staying with. The girls, my girlfriend at the time, her sister, and at that whole, it was only like 2 months. That period right there, it was like, I was introduced to selling drugs, and for me, it just clicked. It was just like, oh, this is the escape, instant gratification. You know what I mean? So I start selling drugs. So I go from maybe having $40 in my pocket to having $400 in my pocket.
There's a lot more back then.
Right?
Yeah.
And all I got to do is at night hit up a couple of customers. You know what I mean? Like, and then, you know, I know in those days, you know, we had beepers. So they're beeping you and they're telling you, I want a 50 piece. I want a 20 piece. I want a 100 piece. I want 200 worth. Right. And you making it happen.
Yeah.
Right. So then you got to take your money, you got to invest it, you got to buy more so that you can make more. You got to buy more so you can make more. And that became my life. Right. So like I said, I'm right about this time, you're about to turn 17 or I am 17 at that time. I wasn't quite 18 yet, because how I know was because I got picked up by the police one time, you know, because I'm not in contact with my mother, you know what I mean? And so she had put she put out a missing persons report.
Yeah.
And I'm speeding down the road one day. I get pulled over. They take me home, you know. So they take me home because I'm not an adult. You know what I mean? And so it was about midnight. They dropped me off at home. I tell my mother, no, I'm cool. I'm just, you know, I'm out here. So she's like, no, come home. And I'm like, I'm not
coming home.
No, I'm not coming home. Yeah. And I left that night. Maybe an hour later, I left that night. So I'm out there, man. Now, this is the thing. The thing about the streets is that the streets are treacherous. The streets are treacherous, man. Everybody's scheming. Everybody's lying. People are toting guns. People are looking for opportunities to take advantage of you. The attitude is, I'm going to get mine, you better get yours. Yeah. And if you're not careful about yours, I'm going to take what's yours. That's the attitude in the streets. But that wasn't the attitude. I didn't grow up like that.
Yeah.
I'm selling drugs to survive, to make money, right? So that I can survive, so that I can eat, so that I can have a place to safely sleep, you know, because I got to get my own apartment. I got to do all of this. I'm only 17, right? And the only way I can see out is by selling drugs, making money. That's the only way I can. That's the only way I don't. There's no other options. I dropped out of school, right? I have no reason to go to school now. I'm on survival mode. That's it. Just go to school for what? Right? I was going to school because, you know, my parents put me in school, and there was a long-term goal there. Oh, go to school, graduate, go to college, get a career, blah, blah, blah. But short term, I've got to survive. School's not going to help me to survive. So I dropped out of school. I need a place to stay because I'm going from here to here to here. There were times when I was sleeping in my car. Right?
This is all at 17 as well.
17, man.
Yeah.
I'm 17. I remember sometimes I was sleeping in the car, and one of my friends knew and was like, listen, you got to sleep in the car, but come over during the day. You can take a shower and, you know, iron your clothes or whatever you got to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so the only means that I had at that time was the drugs, selling the drugs. All right. Now, everybody's treacherous, but I didn't grow up like that. So I'm not that way. Right. I don't think like that. I'm selling drugs, but I'm gonna sell to you the drugs. If I say I'm gonna give you a 20 piece, I'm gonna give you a 20 piece. I'm not gonna cheat you. If I say I'm gonna bring you $100 worth of drugs, however many grams that is, that's what I'm gonna bring you. And so all of my relationships with my clients, whether they were users or sellers, were really good relationships. Right? Again, that personal relationship I was telling you about, you know, earlier, that's how it started.
Inherently, the only thing you were doing wrong was dealing with drugs.
That was it.
But their actions, your mannerisms, and what your goal was all right.
It was right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people.
Yeah.
Like, what made me a good drug dealer was actually Islam.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what one thing led to another.
Yeah.
So, you know, I was honest, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't take advantage. And even if you ended up owing me and I knew you couldn't pay, I would let you go. I didn't know at the time that this was part of the game. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, no, I fall on hard times. I can't pay you, you know, like that's part of the game, but I'm still fresh. You know what I mean? I think when it became real for me, you know, one time, I got arrested. I got arrested and I was in jail for like 20 something days. Right. And when I got out, I had to kind of like start all over again. I think I had like $1,000 or something like that. And I had to go buy a car. And, and then I started hanging around this other group of boys, group of kids. And these dudes was a lot older than me. They was 25, 26, 27.
Yeah.
Some of them had already been to prison and came home. But the common theme is we all selling drugs. All right. And so sometimes, we would share suppliers. Sometimes we would, I take care of him. He take care of me, that kind of thing. Right. But, there was these couple of them. They liked this girl in this apartment, but she didn't like them. She liked me. Right. So I would go over there to store my money. And also, I would stay there sometimes. Right. I would stay there. So there's this jealousy building, and she made that clear. She made it clear. I didn't really care for her.
Yeah.
But she's the one that made it clear, like, I'm not messing with y'all, I'm messing with him. Right? But it built up resentment in them because they had been trying to get at her probably for like 6 months. Right? And then I come out of nowhere and she's like, no, I like him.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is they catch me. One day I pull up in the car. Right? I had a Cadillac, right? In those days, all drug dealers drive Cadillacs. So I pulled up in a Cadillac, right? I'm 17, or maybe I just turned 18. And they standing outside of the apartment, or they like standing outside of the apartment because I closed the door. I'm thinking everything is cool. And, the dude's name was Tommy. Tommy walks up to me, and I could tell that he's a little angry. And he starts talking to me like, yo, what I'm saying? Where you been? What you mean where I've been? I'm a grown man. I be wherever I want to be. Right. I didn't say that, but I'm just measuring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so he's trying to accuse me of snitching on him. He's saying that I told on him, and that's why his parole officer picked him up. And I found out later that what happened was the parole officer just pulled up on him accidentally, or he didn't have an appointment, and searches him. He's got some weed in his pocket. They violate his probation, his parole. I'm like, what I got to do with that?
Yeah.
Right? But they're trying to blame me. He sucker punches me. Right? Just out of nowhere. Remember that I'm telling you, these guys are older than me.
Yeah.
They a little bit more, they seasoned in how this goes. So he just sucker punches me. It's about 6 of them, like half circle around me. I have no idea this is coming at all, period. He sucker punches me, but I don't drop. If you sucker punch somebody, you're supposed to like drop them.
Yeah, lose there.
Right?
Yeah.
But I just remember my head turning like this, and I was like, it happened so fast that I was like wondering why my head was turning.
Yeah.
Right? But by the time my head got back, without thinking, I didn't even think about it. I hit him back. You know what I mean? I hit him back with my right, I hit him back with my right. And he drops. All his boys, I see them all look down at him, and then they all come for me. All right? I know I ain't gonna beat 6 of them.
Yeah.
So I run. But I got a sawed-off shotgun in my trunk. Right? And I tell the girl in the apartment, right? Because I guess she heard and she came, she looked at the balcony, she saw what happened.
Yeah.
And then I ran away. So I called her and I told her, listen, go and open up the trunk, bring me that sawed-off shotgun.
Yeah.
Right? That was when my thinking shifted. Because I hadn't had a serious episode up until that point. I didn't suffer no real consequences. That was the first time that I suffered some consequences.
Yeah. Up until that point, you were just
I'm just selling drugs.
Just selling drugs.
I'm just selling drugs. There's no violence involved.
Yeah.
There's no violence. So she wraps it up in a blanket, brings it down to the end of the street. I go back. Now, my heart is filled now. Like I got all the courage because I got,
shotgun.
Like Tupac said, me and my girlfriend, right? like you try me if you want to. And so I'm feeling a certain kind of way. So I go back, to her apartment, and one of the dudes comes knocking on the apartment, boom, 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 boom. And, and at first I told her, no, don't open it. Right. At first I tell her that, but he's out the door and he's talking crazy. Now I'm starting to put 2 and 2 together. He's saying stuff to her because he's jealous of me. He don't know I don't circle back around and now I'm in the apartment. He don't know that. So he's saying stuff to her through the door. Now I'm like, oh, I gotta confront him. I open up the door. I got the shotgun in my hand. He just sees death. That's all he sees. My intention wasn't to shoot him, but my intention was to let him know we ain't playing no more games.
Yeah.
We ain't playing no more games. He's looking at me. I'm looking at him. And I think I said something like, I don't never want to see you around here again. And he got on. Right? Now, a few days later, I'm driving down the street, same neighborhood, and I see Tommy, the dude who sucker punched me in my face. I see him. He's at the 7-Eleven. So I circle back around. I pull up to the 7-Eleven, and I want it. I want what he started. You sucker punched me. You wanted this fight. You wanted it. Now I'm here. Now let's do it. You know what I mean? He as soon as he sees me walk in the store, he just sees me, and I see him look back at the cash register, the woman at the cash register. And as I get up on him, he looks at me. He's like, "Oh, what's up, homie?" You know what I mean? Now my Islam kicks back in. Right? He's like, "Oh, it's all cool, man. I was tipsy, man. I you know what I'm saying? It's cool, man. I don't." What am I going to do? I'm going to jump on him and he's declaring peace?
Yeah.
Nah. You know what I mean? And so that my Islam kicks in. Like, all right. But I knew these dudes are treacherous.
Yeah.
And if they could kill you, they would. So just stay away from them. So that's when my thinking kind of changed. Like, I always started carrying a pistol with me. Like, you don't never know when it's going to go down. Like, you know what I mean? And then episodes like that would happen. Oh, you know, like it started becoming more regular. I remember one time me and my man was walking down the street, and he had told this guy who just came home from prison. This dude he looked like a football player, man. He's like 6'4", 6'5", cock diesel, right? But we think he's cool, right? Because we're giving him the drug prices as the dealer, not a user. Come to find out, he's actually a user. So my friend said had accused him earlier during the day, of stealing from him, which he did. So he walks up on me. Well, you accusing me of stealing from you? And then he just fires on him. He just boom. My man falls over like this. His knees don't buckle, nothing. He just falls backwards. Boom, on the concrete. I'm looking at this dude. Now, I got a 380 in my pocket, right? And I'm looking at this dude like, I ain't about to fight you. Like, I can see that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you ain't going to do that to me. You not going to do that to me. You know what I mean? And so he made a move towards me. I just pulled out the 380. And I was like, not today. Not today. And I meant it. Like, I would have shot him.
If he could come.
You know what I mean? If he would have tried to like swing on me or something, like I would have shot him. Maybe not to kill him, maybe shoot him in the leg or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So now it's just, things are changing.
So how many more of those events did you have total? Like,
it became regular, man.
Yeah.
It became regular until I kind of started to move. Like I'm no longer like in the 1,000, you know, I'm not making between 500 and 1,000 now. I'm moving up now. Now I'm making 5,000, 10,000. You know what I mean? I'm making like some serious money now, right?
Yeah.
Because what happens is that you can't hang around them dudes no more. And then I start realizing, and this is happening only because people can trust me.
Yeah.
Because I started having connections, right? All of this that I'm telling you about is happening in Denver, right? Denver. So I started having connections from LA. They were bringing me serious weight from out of town, right? Like serious weight. But then they would trust me. They'd drop it off and be like, yo, we'll be back in 3 weeks, right? You owe me whatever it was. I think at that time it was like 25,000 or something like that, right? You owe me 25,000. I'm going to make 40,000 from it, right? So when he comes back, I'll give him his money. I got my 15,000. He gave me another package. I'll see you in 3 weeks. Yeah. And that's all trust, right? Yep. And so, but remember, I'm still young. I'm 18. Now by this time I'm 18, you know? And, but now I realize like stupid stuff happens. You go to a party, somebody gets killed in the party. And this actually happened. Like I was at a party and, somebody he got killed right next to me. Right. And you start trying, as you start making more money, you start trying to avoid them type of situations because that's happening at a low level. It's not supposed to be happening at a higher level. You start hanging out with people and they got a different way of thinking, and they're, they go to Vegas for fun and stuff like that. Like it ain't no hood stuff no more. You know what I mean? So that's what started happening with me. But still there's danger, right? Which this is kind of the segue into, this was like a major event, right? I had two dudes bringing me work from out of town, right? One brings me a package, and it was kind of small, but I needed it at that time, right? And I think I ended up owing him like $9,000 or something like that. I probably was going to make like $4,000 or $5,000 off of it. And so he brings me the package. It's like maybe 10 o'clock at night. He had just got in from LA, and he started asking me questions that he never asked me before. But I didn't think about it. I didn't think of it. You know what I mean? So he's like asking me, where you going to go? What you going to do tonight? And I was like, I'm going to go to this movie, right? There's like a late movie. It starts at midnight, so you'll be home around 2:30 or whatever. So I tell him, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. But I don't end up going. I end up not going, right? I think I smoked some weed or something like that, and I ended up not going. So it's 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning. I hear footsteps in my apartment. Now, this apartment is like real safe and secure. And I only let the most trusted people come here. You know what I mean? So for there to be footsteps in there, it got to be the police. It don't make no sense that anybody else would be there. Yeah. Right? So, but that night before I went to bed, I had a big 357 that I used to keep on my top shelf. And just for some reason I grabbed it and I put it with me, right? Like I put it up underneath my pillow, but I didn't put no bullets in it. I didn't put no bullets in the gun. I go to the door. When I open up the door and I lean out to see who it is, the only thing they see is the gun. The only thing I see is like four dudes like mobbing down the hallway, coming to the bedroom where I'm at, but they got on masks. Right? They got on masks, blue. They're dressed in blue. They got on masks. So, and then the guns just go off. Boom, 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 all through the apartment. Right? Man, I don't got no bullets in the gun. If they come down this hallway, I'm dead. So I duck back around the doorway. The bullets are still coming through the wall because it's just plaster. The bullets are coming through, and I can hear pew pew and going into the closet, And I just say to myself, Ya Allah, you see. Now I done just finished smoking weed. I done just did a big drug deal. But Allah is not far away from my heart. Like, you know what I mean? I drop to the floor and I say, Ya Allah, right? Because I'm just trying not to get hit. They end up leaving. Right? They run. I hear them like scrambling to get out of the apartment and stuff, Yeah. Maybe about a minute later, I hear the car pull off in the parking lot. Yeah. But I got to get out of there because it's an apartment. There's neighbors and stuff like that, like they might be calling the police. I don't know. Maybe somebody got hit because, the bullet's going through the wall. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I just got to get out of here. Right? So I grab the money, I grab the drugs, and I leave. The next day, I come back around just to see, like early in the morning, to see if there's any police cars, an investigation going on, like what's happening. Yeah. I go to some of my neighbors, like, hey, did you hear some gunshots over here last night? Yeah. They was like, nah. And then I asked somebody else, is it any police come around? They was like, nah. So I was like, oh, all right, must be cool. You know what I mean? So I go upstairs, I go into the room. I go back into the apartment, everything is cool. I could tell nobody had been in there, it was locked and everything. But the thing on my mind is this: who did it? How did I get caught slipping? I'm looking out there. I'm like somebody tried to rob me. How did they even know that I had work? Yeah. How did they know when to come? It never crosses my mind, never, that the dude that brought me the drugs was the same dude that was coming to rob me. It never occurred to me. It never occurred to me. But on the streets, that's what happens. Somebody bring you a package. If something happens to that package, you still owe him the money. He might give you some more, but now you owe him double. You owe him for the old package and you owe him for the new package. And you got to keep working for him until you pay it off. And that's how they get people like me, because I'm honest. I'm going to pay you what I owe you. And so he's, but I don't see it. I don't, you know what I mean? This is outside of my experience, And what ends up happening is maybe a few weeks later, one of the dudes that I was doing business with, he calls me up and he's like, yo, meet me downstairs. So I go downstairs and he gets out of the car. He's like, yo, why you ain't tell me? Because he don't know nothing about what happened in the apartment. Yeah. But he's like, yo, why you ain't tell me? He said, yo, I was just at the club and them dudes talking about what they did to you. And, ran up into your apartment and stuff. I was like, who was it? He started telling me it was Blue, it was so-and-so, it was so-and-so, and so-and-so. And then I put it together. Like, oh, he's like, yeah, man. Them dudes came from out of town, man. They set you up, man. Okay. All right. So now it's on site. Either we going to get them or they going to get us. Yep. You know what I mean? A couple more weeks go by because he came over to that apartment. It was when I was moving out, when I came over. But he didn't come upstairs. He called me from downstairs. He's like, yo, T. I'm talking about the dude who set me up. He called me from downstairs. Then when I reflected back on it, I was like, that's why he ain't come upstairs. You know what I mean? I didn't answer him because I had some other dudes in the apartment with me. You know what I mean? I had some other dudes from LA in the apartment with me. And so I didn't answer him. But I was wondering, why didn't he come upstairs? Why didn't he come upstairs? He didn't come upstairs because he was scared. He knew that the game was up. Yeah. Right? So a few weeks later, and now everything's still going on. Yeah. Right? Everything's still going on. Like, you know what I mean? I'm just moving much more careful now. I only go out at night now. Or if I go out during the day, I only go to safe places. You know what I mean? And so the way I'm moving is different. And there's other stuff happening like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm feeling different about it now, right? It's no longer exciting. Now it's like life or death. Yeah. You know what I mean? Is you know what I mean? And I'm also thinking about, there'd be times when I would like go to my mother's house. I would go to my mother's house, my sisters, because at that time I had long hair, right? So like they would braid my hair and, stuff like that. And then the peace that was at my mother's house I was missing on the streets. I would go into my mother's house and my siblings would be all at peace. Like, they don't have none of my worries. Yeah. They don't got to walk around with a gun. They don't got to worry who's lying, who's trying to set you up. Right. And I noticed that instantly. Yeah. So something is changing inside. Like, you got this ain't nothing, man. You got to get away from this, man.
So it went from not being at peace in your house to going to the streets, finding peace there. But because it's something obviously that doesn't have like a natural barakah in it either, losing your peace there and realizing that the peace is back at your mother's house.
But the things had changed in them 2 years at my mother's house too, right? Yeah. Like, my stepfather had started working and, so things had changed, Yeah, it's not and not only that, but we're older now. So you can't, the abuse thing ain't going to work. Yeah. You know what I mean? It ain't going to work.
Yeah. And you're also not someone who's powerful and like, has his own thing going on and,
right.
The control dynamic, the dynamics between is
different. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I remember he still tried me one time. Yeah. Right. I remember I went over there to get my hair braided, and, you know what I mean? And he said, he was like talking to me. He was like just talking to me. He was saying, yeah, you know what I mean? You gotta be like people who are righteous or something like that. And I confronted him. Like, be like who? Yeah. Be like who? Tell me who that is. Yeah, and I dared him, like, I was in my tone of voice. I was daring him to say like me, because I was going to tell him about himself. Yeah. And I was like, be like who? Be like who? And he understood. Yeah. You know what I mean? He understood. And so, and so there was a lot of, like I said, there was a lot of things happening. You know what I mean? And so, it was no longer fun. Now it was just a matter of survival. So what ends up happening? Like, this was like the key moment. This was the first of a few key moments. The first key moment was this. I go over to my friend calls me. He pages me 911. So I go to the payphone. I call him back. Yo, he's like, yo, Blue is over here right now. One of the dudes that shot up the apartment.
Yeah.
I'm not too far. I'm like 10 minutes away. I'm like, all right, hold him there, because Blue, maybe they run out of drugs. They looking for another connect. They looking for somebody else. So he go to him, not knowing he's connected to me.
Yeah.
Right. So he goes over to my man's house. He's waiting for a package. So my man's like, yo, I got somebody bringing something. Don't worry, I got you. Not knowing that I'm coming. Right. So I parked like a block away. I walk up the block. I jump over the fence. I told him to leave the back door open. I come in through the back door. When I go through the kitchen to the front room, as soon as Blue sees me, it was like he froze for a second, and then he reached for his gun. Right? But I was already on him. I was up on him. I had the gun, and I'm talking to him greasy. My man comes over, takes the gun from him. We're going to kill this dude, man. We are going to kill him. In Colorado, they got basements. Right? A lot of bad things happen in them basements. We was going to take this dude down in the basement. We was going to air him out. Like, that was my intention. My whole intention, as I'm driving there, my intention is that payback. Payback is a mother, and you about to pay it. As we making him stand up, and we walking him back toward the staircase to go down into the basement, time slows down for me. And I hear my heart say to me, how are you going to explain this to Allah, Yawm al-Qiyamah? It was like my heart understood everything at once. You're going to die one day. You ain't supposed to be in these streets anyway. There's no justifying killing somebody for something that happens in the streets, those streets that you're not supposed to be in.
Yeah.
You want this killing to be in between you and Jannah? That's what you want? Because you're doing all of this now, but you're going to be done with this in a few years. So what are you doing? It was like that message just came on my heart all at once. And within 2 seconds, I understood. What I understood was, I can't kill him. We got to let this dude go, man. We got to let this dude go. When I tell my man, we got to let this dude go, it's as if he didn't even hear me. He's like, what? And he's still pulling on the dude, pushing him down the steps. Right? So I start being like, nah, let him go. Now he hears me. But it's incredulous. What you mean? Because we both know what this means. We both know what this means. He coming back with his crew. Somebody gonna pay for this. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, someone's gonna die.
So that was the first thing that happened, man. That was the first thing that happened that was like, I got to get out of this. Yeah. Right? It's over. You know what I mean? Things are not going as planned. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's my message for the Muslim kids that's like in the streets. Like, you can't control outcomes. Right? You can't control outcomes. You might say, oh, I'm only going to do this, or I'm only going to do that.
Yeah.
You don't know what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You think you go into it, it's going to give you freedom. But the higher up you go, the less freedom you're going to get.
Exactly.
You're not doing things from a freedom perspective anymore.
Right? Yeah. And so, so the next thing that happened was this, to kind of get away. I call myself getting away. So I'm consolidating too. Like, I'm only dealing with one dude. If he ain't got it, I don't care. I'm not dealing with nobody else. Right. And, and I only dealing with certain select people. Like, I might got 3 or 4 people that I normally deal with, when before I had dozens. Right. But the more your name is ringing, the more problems you have, the more people, they know where you are. They know how to find you. They know, what I mean? They can set you up. They can page you and say, yo, man, I need something. You go over there and this is, it ain't what you think. Yeah. So I'm limiting my circle. It's less money, but I'm safe. Yeah. I go to Mexico. I just buy a ticket, I buy some tickets, fly to Mexico. You know, that's another thing too, man. In the beginning, you know, when you first start making that kind of money and you're that young, you know, instant gratification, man, is a mother, man. Like, I mean, we could literally walk into the DMV and pick who we wanted to give us the fake ID, right? If I need a fake ID, if I need to be 21 tomorrow, she gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give her $3,000. I'm gonna give her 3,500. She gonna make it happen. If I need a new address, if I need, you know, whatever I need, she gonna make it happen. I can walk into a car dealership, right? As long as I got cash, I can put it under any name I want. I can, you know, it could be a fake name, fake social, whatever. And that's dangerous to expose someone they're not finished maturing. They're not finished growing up. They don't understand the consequences to these things. That's very dangerous.
Yeah.
But that was what I was experiencing from the time I was 16 all the way up about to the time I was close to 20, or I think I just turned 20. So, you know, there's all these things that's happening. So anyway, I go to Mexico. We fly to Mexico. And in those days, you didn't need a passport. You could fly on your license, right? So flew down there. I stayed down there for a couple of weeks. I took the Quran with me, all right? And as I was coming back on the plane, this is the second thing that happened, actually. On the plane, I read something, and and I don't even remember what it was now, but I read something in the Quran, and it rang a bell with me. And I knew again, it's over. You gotta get right. You gotta get right with Allah, you know? When I got off of that plane coming back, one of the customs officers was like, some people want to talk to you. It was some detectives. And they're asking me questions. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's not, this never happened to me before, and I don't know what it's about. And you know what I mean? I'm trying to figure it out. You know what I mean? They're asking me, so where you been? I'm like, you know where I've been. I just got off a flight. You know what I mean? You know exactly where I've been. You know, and so they're like, what were you doing when you were down there? I was like, swimming? Like, you know what I mean? Eating tortillas? What else? Like, you know what I mean? But then they're like, do you know what happened over there on Darby Street? Right? That's for your audience if they want to look it up. Right? You know what happened? And they was like, I'm like, nah, I don't even stay there no more. I have been out of that apartment for like a month now. And they was like, yeah, you know, the woman, a woman was robbed at gunpoint, and you know what I mean? And she was like, molested or something. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is the first time I'm like, oh, is this about to get real? I know they ain't trying to pin this on me. Right? But they kind of had already knew who it was, but they just wanted to talk to me to kind of confirm it. You know what I mean? But if I confirm it, that means I'm in cahoots with these dudes, that we got some type of business or we got some type of beef, which means that we have some type of business.
Yeah.
So you got to deny everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, I don't know, but I do know. These dudes had found out where one of my apartments were, thinking that I still lived there, but a woman and her kids had moved in there. They go up into the apartment looking for me. They tie up her kids, put her kids in the closet. They take her, strip her down naked, and they're asking her questions under gunpoint. Where's Tabari? In the newspaper article, she was saying, where's Bubba? But I knew who they were looking for.
Yeah.
Right? They were saying, where's so-and-so? Where's the money? Where's the drugs? She don't have a clue. She's just traumatized for no reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that was the third thing. It was like, this is over with.
Yeah.
These dudes looking for me. The police is on to me.
Innocents are getting in the way. Like, yeah.
When I told my crew that I was done, they couldn't believe it. Because we was getting money. We're young, but we was getting money. They was like, ain't no way you gonna work a job. They laughing at me and carrying on and stuff, you know what I mean? And they know I'm Muslim because I used to, sometimes, man, we smoke a blunt and I'll give it to them. I'll be like, that ain't the right religion. There's only one God. Jesus is one of his holy messengers, blah, 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 blah. Like, so they knew, that I was Muslim. So they would start making fun of me like, oh, you going to be Alibaba. You going back to that, man. What's going on? You know what I mean? But after a while, they saw I was serious. And then some of them would come to me for like advice, like, yo, man, I'm tired of this too, man. I don't know. So some of them ended up, becoming Muslim. And so the first thing, so now it's like, okay, what do I do next? And if you want guidance, to do the right thing, Allah will guide you to do that. The opposite is also true. If you want guidance to do wrong, He will allow the misguidance to reach you. He will allow it to reach you. That's what I know. I'll be driving in the car, bumping music. Now, my intention is to get out of the game. My intention, I'm done. But I might have a little bit of work left, so I'm just selling the rest of what I got, then I'm done. I'll be driving in the car, getting ready to go make a sale, got the music bumping and everything. And I would hear my heart say, you got to fix that situation between you and your parents. It would be loud and clear. It didn't matter what was happening around me. And then you got to start eating halal meat. I know these things. Like this is part of my upbringing, right? I am a Muslim through and through. And so, it's coming back to me. It's coming back to me. And when you want it, that guidance, it will come. I don't care your state. If you want it, it will come. But it's just now I'm under pressure. But it's coming. So I do. I make tawbah. You know what I mean? And eventually I actually, I start going back to the masjid. I start trying to get myself together. I start trying to, get everything together.
Yeah. What age is all this at?
Huh?
You're on 22, 23 now? 20?
No, this is, I'm not even 21 yet.
Yeah.
Right? I'm thinking about to turn 21. That summer, I think I turned 21. So I'm trying to get it together, right? And I know about practice, right? I know what I got to do. I got to pray 5 times a day.
The rituals,
right?
yeah.
I know the rituals. At this time, I don't know anything about purification. I don't know anything about purification. And the way that I explain it to people is like this. When you're committing a lot of sins, it's like your house is on fire. When you stop and you make tawbah, it's as if you put the fire out. But the house has fire damage. It still smells like smoke. The timbers are it's dangerous. Yeah. Right? It can still, something bad can still happen to you because you haven't cleaned up the house. You haven't repaired the house.
We got to rebuild.
The soul is the same way.
Yeah.
You have habits now. I got habits now. I got these habits of quick money, scheming. You know what I mean? Like quick temper. I'll pull a gun out if I have to. What? You know what I mean? What? How you want it? That stuff stays with you, man. It stays with you. But this time, I don't really know too much about, like how to actually go about purifying the heart. All right. So anyway, I get married, have my first child. When my second child comes, I'm like, I got to get out of here. Because it's not like California. California there was more deen, there was more Muslims and institutions and things like that out in California. So I was like, I'm leaving Colorado. There's nothing out here. And at that time I was going back and forth. Like I would come out to California, see some of my friends, and then go back and be like, man, it's more going on in Cali. All right, I'm going back to California. Right. So I did that after my second baby was born. And I was like, I don't want them to go to public school. I know what happened to me. I want them to go to all Muslim schools. But the only Muslim schools I know that's, full, up to the 10th grade is out here, not in Colorado at the time. So I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. I pack up, we pack up. And during that time, I had a wholesale business, right? We was one of the first ones in a small town. It's about 60 miles south of Denver called Colorado Springs. And I opened up a hip hop shop. So I'm flying to New York. And I'm getting stuff wholesale, like at that time, the T-shirts were real big, and so you see, I still got my mind made up. I know I got to survive, so I got to figure out a different way of making money. So I figured out a different way of making money, and this was at the time right when Tupac had got killed, and Biggie's about to get killed, right? And so their names are all like everybody's wearing their names and on the T-shirts and hats and stuff like that with their their profile, their face profile and stuff like that. I would go to New York and get that stuff for like $2, bring it back to Colorado, sell it for $15. Like the markup was crazy. Not just that, but anything you can think of. Hats, sunglasses, T-shirts, belts, watches, jewelry, we had it, And so, once I realized that I could actually make more money in California doing the same thing at a wholesale level, that was when I said, all right, I'm going to Cali. So I relocated to California. My base was in the Bay Area. And sure enough, I started, I found, like, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true. You know what I mean? Like, Muslims run the liquor stores up there.
Yeah.
And they have the store. They have constant traffic. They have the clients that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
The dudes with the booming systems, and they want the fresh outfits, and they want, you know what I mean, the newest videos is coming from New York, and I'm supplying it. Now, the Bay Area was like, it was a beautiful time, because what's happening is, this was the first time that I had a chance to formally study the deen. If you remember Sheikh Hamza Yusuf,
Yeah.
this is when he had opened up Zaytuna Institute, not the college, the institute.
Yeah.
And he was bringing shuyukh from overseas, especially from Mauritania, right? Sheikh Qatri, Sheikh Salik, right? And there's students that's going over there to study, and they would come back in the summertime sometimes,
Yep.
right? Right. So I'm there. I'm going there. I'm at Zaytuna. My first introduction to Aqidah Tahawiyya was Sheikh Salik. And he was like, y'all have to memorize this. But that's not the only thing that's happening there. What's happening there is I began to learn what it takes to become a scholar. This was my first introduction to ulum al-shar'iyya. I'm like, oh, this is how it works. There's a curriculum.
Yeah.
There are masters to every science. You know, like if you name any science, there's masters, there's go-to texts, right? So that's becoming clear to me. Like, oh, this is how it works, you know? And then Arabic became very important to me at that time. All right? So Zaytuna Institute is making that, and is bringing that Islamic side alive. But at the same time, I'm around some Muslims, right? Because we still connected to the streets. Like, we're taking our merchandise to the streets. We got videos and CDs and T-shirts and hats and stuff like that. So we're in the streets. But eventually, again, I reached that level where, like, no. I got an apartment. Whatever you want from me, come and meet me over at the apartment. You know what I mean? I didn't rent a storage or anything like that. I rented an apartment, and then I would have UPS ship all my stuff to the apartment, and then I would go there, arrange it and stuff like that, and I let somebody stay there. This young guy, he was staying there. So then I started dealing with all of the brothers, or some of them weren't Muslim, like some of the people from San Francisco. They would come over and they would buy stuff from me, but when they came, they're buying wholesale. So we can't even have a conversation unless you're spending $2,000, $2,500,
Yeah.
right? So it's the same hookup, but it's not haram.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I haven't removed from my heart this sense of instant gratification and greed that developed in just in 4 years of being in the street. All right? So one thing leads to another. Eventually, one of the brothers comes to me and is like, look, loan me $25,000, which I had at the time. I'm maybe 27 at this time, like 27.
Yeah.
So I struggled. I was holding on to my deen from 20 to 27, right? Then he says, loan me 25,000.
That's a Muslim brother or
Muslim brother.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about? Right, I'm going to give you back 30. Right, give me a month. I'm going to give you back 30,000. And I'm like, okay, I need some collateral. Right? So he gave me his Range Rover. And I had a friend who worked at a pawn shop. He can run the VIN number, make sure it was legit, make sure it was really his car. It wasn't repoed or whatever, right? Yeah. So my friend was like, nah, you could go sell this today for like 35.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, do it. I would do it. So I was like, all right, put the Range Rover in storage. I'm going to give you 25,000. He comes back in like 2 weeks. Like, here's your 30,000. You want to do it again? Now, I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
I'm at that time, I'm just greedy. I'm not stupid though.
Yeah.
I know there's only one of 3 ways that you're making that kind of money and you don't have a legitimate business.
Yep.
You either pimping, drugs, or guns.
Yeah.
That's how that kind of money is made, right? And he's asking me if I want to do it again. Man, to make a long story short, I end up activating some of my old contacts in LA,
Yeah.
right? From Denver.
Yeah.
You know, when I call him back 6 years later. He's like, yo. But he was like, yeah, come on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
This is the part where it's like your house was burned down. You put the whole fire out, but the fire restarted.
the fire restarted, man.
Yeah.
The embers
Yeah.
were rekindled,
Yeah.
right? Just the wind of passion, right, is starting up.
Yep.
And so before I know it, man, we got a plan, man.
Mm.
You know what I mean? We're shipping kilos of cocaine
Jeez.
from LA to the East Coast.
Yeah.
I think we start off with 2. Before you know it, 30, 40, 50.
Yeah.
You know, I made $1 million. I became a millionaire, you know, and during that time. And I'm going to tell you something else. It didn't even have to go as bad as the part I'm getting ready to tell you about. I remember clearly, I was washing my car in front of the house one day. And again, I heard my heart say to me, you need to stop right now. I think I had like $500,000 at that time, free and clear, right? I could just walk away and I'm done, all right? And I heard my shaitanic, the nafs al-amara bisu, that evil commanding self, I heard it say, nah, well, you got to get $1 million. But I heard my heart. I heard it loud and clear. It's so loud, I can still hear it. It said, you need to stop. I made my $1 million. And you know what? I said, I'm going for 2.
Jeez.
That's how it works, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how it works, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved me from myself. Saved me from myself. One of the packages got intercepted by the feds. And, you know, this is the new chapter. This is where it all begins. You know what I mean? So, you know, we shipped something out to Philadelphia, you know. The thing about Philly, man, is that it's like a lot of Muslims doing a lot of bad things. It's just what it is, you know. And there's a reason why. Philadelphia has a long history with the Nation of Islam, you know what I mean, with Black Mafia family, you know, like it has a long history of things and people just become victims of that. Yeah. And so there's a lot of Muslims there and they're just, you know, they're selling drugs and they're doing everything. Yeah. And so there was a huge market for this there. You know what I mean? You could show up with 50 bricks, you know, wholesale, you know, it's probably $700,000. And you be in and out of there, man. Before you land at 10 o'clock in the morning, you'll be on a flight back to Cali.
Definition of instant gratification.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it was nothing. It's that kind of money in a drug game. You know what I mean? Like. So anyway, the feds, they intercepted, right? They intercepted the package, and I show up a few days later and go to where the package was intercepted, right? Thinking I was going to find other people there, or another different situation. And they don't know nothing about me. They don't know who's coming. They don't know what's going on and everything because there was no investigation. There was like they got lucky. Yeah. Right. Or I got lucky, I would say, right? Because Allah is going to use this to save me. Yep. So they grabbed me, and and it's like a major affair, man. They got helicopters out following me and stuff. You know what I mean? Like I'm oblivious. And the crazy thing is this: Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will. He will answer your dua. I had made a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that if I was being watched by the feds to let me see. Let me see it. Let me understand it. I saw it. I understood it. And I was still too greedy to get out of there. You know what I'm saying? And so when they start, you know what I mean? Because I pick up the packages, which are now, they've been intercepted and filled with something else. I pick up the packages, put them in the car, and then they're trailing me. I keep seeing the same car. And I hear my heart say, something's wrong. No, ain't nothing wrong. Get to the hotel. I see the same car. Somebody's in the car. No, ain't nothing wrong. I leave. I start moving around Philadelphia, going to talk to people. And what's up? Right? When I come back to the hotel, I go into the hotel room. I feel it. I feel something is really, really wrong. That's when I responded. I left the hotel room. I left the packages. It's too late. I hear the car coming up the hotel driveway. The feds jump out. You know what I mean? But there's like these little alleyways and stuff. So I'm trying to like dip in, and I hear the helicopter. I could hear the helicopter far away, but then all of a sudden I hear the helicopter go, bump, 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 like it's right over top of me. You know what I mean? Game's over. Game is over. So they arrest me. All right. They take me. You know, they don't know who I am because fake ID. You know what I mean? Everything's being done under fake ID. And alhamdulillah, that saved me too. Right? I'll tell you about that. But you know, they take me down to the station. They held me there for like maybe 7 or 8 hours, you know what I mean? Like trying to get me to talk, and you know what I mean? Like, listen, we'll let you go today. Right? Let's just tell us who, you know, when they intercept that many drugs, they know. You got it from somewhere, so there's that part of the pipeline, and you're taking it somewhere, so there's that part of the pipeline. Yeah. Tell us who they are, and we'll let you go.
So trying to get it as high as possible.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? But I know they have an instant offense. They only have this. When you start talking, you got to tell them everything about everybody.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. You got to tell them about your guns. You got to tell them about your cash. You got to tell them everything.
Yeah.
Right? And then they're going to arrest people that's going to tell them about stuff that y'all did that you didn't tell them. So now you got a new case.
Yeah.
You see, I already know this. I know how this works. Yeah. Right? And so I'm like, I ain't got no rap.
Yep.
Right? And they were cordial. Right? They weren't disrespectful. They tried some slick stuff, you know what I mean? Like one day they come and just pick me up from the jail, and they take me across the street, and you know, they try to talk to me. You want some hamburgers? You want this? Want this? No. I wasn't disrespectful, but I was firm. There will be no cooperation.
Yeah.
And then they called my case manager. There was some feds called them from LA and was like, "Oh, was it LA? Yeah, I think it was from LA or from the Bay Area." And they was like, "We want to come out there and talk to him, but we don't want to come all the way out there, and then he don't want to talk to us." So my case manager calls me and is like being real nice to me. I'm like, I'm in jail at the time. I'm in jail, you know what I mean? And the case manager calls me and says, "Look, don't kill the messenger, man, but there's some people that want to come and see you, you know what I mean, from the West Coast." And then I'm like, I tell them, don't waste their time. Don't waste their time. Yeah, I ain't got no rap. And he's like, all right, you know what I mean? I tell him, you know, they tried a couple of times, you know what I mean? But there ain't no rap. There's no rap. Like I understood that from my street experience, and I understood that from just my parents' background, because my parents grew up in that Black Panther, you know what I mean? Like, you know, don't be like the FBI because you'll end up telling a lie. You know what I mean? Like I heard them kind of rhymes since I was 5, 6 years old, you know what I mean? And so I knew they have this offense. They have this instant offense. It ain't going no further, because if it goes further, it can be worse.
Yeah.
Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala covered me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he covered me, man. Because if they would have known where I lived at and ran up in there, I'd have a brand new case.
Yep.
I'd have had a brand new case. This is the deep thing, Talha. This is the deep thing, man. They go to my mother's house. The van that's in the same ID as the ID that I had when they arrested me is in my mother's driveway. Because my wife was driving that van. If they would have just waited and followed her back to the house, which was right around the corner, they'd have had a case. I'd have had a new case. I'd have had a new case. That's what I mean. Like, Allah covered me. You know what I mean? He covered me there. I didn't even know this until I went to trial. When I went to trial, I see her notes. And in her notes, she's like, we saw this van. This is the license plate number. They never even took time to run the license plates. They never even, you know what I mean? They never even, it was Allah. That's all I can say to you. It was Allah, right?
And did you recognize that when it happened, though? Like, at that time, were you like,
yeah, and when I'm at trial, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when I'm at trial, I'm like, ooh, yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, okay, so I'm in jail, man. I'm in jail, you know what I mean? And, you know, I already know I'm going to go to trial. I hire a lawyer. Shout out the guy Smiley. He was a pretty good lawyer. He was the same lawyer for Allen Iverson when Allen Iverson caught his case. And, he broke everything down for me. Look, you can do this, you can do this, you go to trial, this is what you're looking at, blah, 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 blah. And everything pretty much went how he said it was going to go. You know what I mean? So he was telling me, look, you're looking at about 20 years. Right. If you lose trial, you're going to get about that. You know what I mean? And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go to trial. He said, but you can plead out and you can do this. And, I thought about it, you know what I mean? But nah, And alhamdulillah, I didn't. Because that would come into effect later. But how much time we got?
I'm good.
You good?
I'm just checking the battery, make sure it's keeping
Oh, it's
die.
still,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
If it dies, I'll get new batteries in there, no problem.
All right. So
you're at the point of like.
So I'm at FDC, Philadelphia. I'm at FDC. This is the federal holding facility in Philadelphia. Right. There's a lot of Muslims there, man. The first thing I realized, they don't know their deen. These are dudes from the streets that they have a Muslim identity, but they don't know how to practice correctly. Whereas I spent time in the streets too, but I had a chance to actually work on my Muslim identity. Right. More than that, I had a chance to study with some scholars. All right. But again, if you don't purify, Imam Ghazali, rahimahullah, he talks about this. He talks about the scholars who are jealous of each other and the scholars that don't take time to purify their hearts. You know what I mean? And he didn't want to be like that. Imam Ghazali didn't want to be like that, which led him to, take a 10-year hiatus, purify his heart, and write Ihya Ulumuddin. Yeah. Right? Okay. So when I get locked up, it took me time to get to the point of really, really making tawbah. I'm just being honest. Like that's how jammed up I was, spiritually. Spiritually, I was like, I felt like Allah owed me something. Right. Like Allah was just going to come and cover me no matter what I did. You know what I mean? No matter what happened. Like I felt entitled a little bit. Yeah. You know what I mean? Especially as I started looking at my case. They didn't know anything. They didn't have anything except an instant offense. I'm going to go to trial. You have nothing. You have no wiretaps. You have just me showing up, picking up some boxes. You have to prove that I know what's in those boxes. Anybody could pick up the boxes. Do they know what's in the boxes? So you've got to prove that. Yeah. So I'm just like, oh, Allah going to get me off. You know what I mean? It didn't go like that. I lost trial. I think it was took a week, jury convicted me. And this is the first time that I have no hope in anything. No hope. I have no hope in the judge being lenient. I have no hope in my lawyer getting me off. I have no hope in the money that I got stored up at the house. I have no hope in anything. Nothing. I have no hope. This is the first time where I have to confront being alone with Allah. It's just me and Allah.
How did you view Allah at that time? Because if you have no hope in anything, did you have hope in Allah? So, or did you lose hope in that too?
No, I didn't lose hope in Allah.
Yeah.
But I did say why in a disrespectful way.
Yeah.
Right? There's two ways of saying why. Right? You can ask Allah why the shaitanic way. You can say, Shaitan asked Allah a question. Yeah. He said, "Asjudu liman khalaqta tinan." Do I have to bow down to the one that you created out of dirt?
Yeah.
Clay?
Why?
It's disrespectful, but it's a disrespectful why.
Yeah, very, very, yeah.
But the angels ask Allah why.
Yeah.
Right? Another way. Are you going to create, a creation that they're going to shed blood and spread corruption in the earth? Yep. That's a different type of why. They actually want the wisdom. Yep. They're not rebelling.
Yep. They would follow you if you didn't.
Right. Yeah. So there's different ways. The why is different in the Quran.
Yep.
I did say, why? Why did you let this happen to me?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, I did. That did happen.
Yeah.
And I still make tawbah for that.
Yeah.
Right? I still make tawbah for that. So, That was the first time. That was the first time I was faced with that. Like, you're not going home, bro. You are not going home. You are not going home. You're going to be here for however long the judge says you're going to be here. I went. That was the first time that I actually went and made like a tawbah of someone who had no one but Allah. Right? The muttar, the one who's drowning, and he sees a plank over there and he's trying to get to that plank. That's it. And he'll do anything to get to that plank. That's where I was. And I knew that I needed one thing. I knew I was going to need patience. And alhamdulillah, I already had Imam Ghazali's Ihya al-Ulumuddin there. I started reading it. Just the chapter on patience. That's where I started the book at, actually. The chapter of patience. And then as I'm going through that chapter, I'm like, how am I gonna do this? Right? You know, like I'm asking Allah for forgiveness, but I don't have that sense of tawbah yet. That took time. It took about a year, actually. Just to be honest with you, it took about a year.
Was that year in prison or what?
That year's in prison.
Yeah.
Once you get convicted, you're not getting out.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You're going to reduce some time. I knew I was looking at 20 years.
Yeah.
So the judge gave me 17 and a half years.
Yeah.
Right? I think I was still thinking I might get out on, I was going to file an appeal, and I might get out on appeal.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So there was a little bit of hope there, but I knew that was years down the road.
Yeah.
So I had to rectify my situation with Allah. So I started studying patience, started reading all the different hadith on patience. But the thing about patience is nobody can teach you how to do it. You just got to do it.
Yep.
Time has to go by.
Yep.
Right? Okay. So that was my first lesson. Second lesson was I began to memorize all of the dua that I could from the different hadith collections, the different books and things like that. And all the ones from the Quran that dealt with forgiveness, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. Because I wanted to get this right. It slowly started to dawn on me how treacherous I had been with Allah. It was slowly starting to dawn on me. It started to dawn on me when I started having new people would become Muslim in prison, and I had to begin to teach them Islam, starting with Surah Al-Fatiha. And then they would tell me their story. And they would say things to me like, my mother was on drugs. I've never known her without being on drugs. My father was on drugs. I started stealing from the time I was in the 3rd grade from the local grocery store. I started stealing bread and bologna just so I could eat. And then I learned how to sell drugs. I used to sell drugs to my mama. And then I had to, as I'm listening to this, I had to ask myself, this is what you were trading in? This is what you were promoting? You see the misery behind this? But I can't say it to him. But it's in my heart. And I'm ashamed, man. I'm ashamed. You know what I mean? Because this is going to go on for a decade. A decade. Every story you listen to, there is some remnant of what I was involved in. Whether it's the drugs or the fast money, that whole lifestyle, how these dudes ended up in prison, I was involved in. It was part of my life at one time.
So you were basically watching like yourself in a mirror.
Watching myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
So I want to get this Tauba thing right.
Yeah.
Right? I want to get it right. So about 18 months, I would say probably maybe 6 or 7 months after I lost trial.
Yeah.
Was the first time that I felt a break. You know, some of the scholars of Tazkiyah, the purification of the heart, they talk about this. They talk about Like there has to be this, you know, the nafs, they have to break at a point. Like they have to give. When they're too strong, you won't be able to be spiritual, right? They're too strong, right? Because the persona is up front, not the real you. But as you start finding gaps in the persona, then the real you begins to shine through, and you become ashamed of the persona. I experienced that, and it must have just been building up, because I remember it clearly. I was in my cell, and I had just takbired into salat, Allahu Akbar. And as I'm finishing up the thana, I heard my heart say, you have offended Allah. I couldn't even finish my prayer. I just went into sajda. I just dropped to my knees and went into sajda, and I wept. And I wept, and I wept, because that was really the first time that I understood what I had done to myself.
Yeah. Your heart went from saying, you need to fix this with Allah, to like recognizing you had offended Allah. And that recognition was a recognition of who you yourself was and what you were doing. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, you know, everywhere I went, I was the imam or the assistant imam.
In the prison.
In the prison system. Yeah. You know, maybe because I had a chance to actually study.
Yeah.
And so, of course, I started coming across, you know, brothers who they had a certain understanding, and, you know what I mean? And what it did is just help me to be sharper. Because, alhamdulillah, my family, that's one thing they did throughout my whole bid, was they sent me books. I would be, you know, send me books on this, you know what I mean? And they would send me catalogs, and, oh, get me this one. That was another thing that I was working on, was a curriculum. Yeah. I was like, you know, we need you got to imagine, man, like you go into, you know, a prison system, there's, you know, 50 cells. 26 of those cells are Muslims. Yeah. And half of them, both people in the cell are Muslims. There's a lot of Muslims in prison. But they don't have a way. They know a lot of this, and all the rest is missing. Yeah. They know this, all the rest is missing. There's all these, and so you're constantly putting out fires. I remember, to give you a perfect example, you know, we had established congregational prayer. We had established it, and this new brother came, New Jersey. He came from New Jersey, and so we just made salah. And it was a couple of new brothers who had just took shahada and stuff like that, and I had taught them how to make du'a. And, you know, like after you make your salah, this is one of the best times to ask Allah for what you want. Now, understand that these brothers are in some of the worst conditions of their lives. They're looking at life in prison. They're looking at 50 years, 60 years in prison. You know what I mean? So that's the context. And this brother comes in, and he seems like he's gung-ho. Like, yeah, man, we got to get the salat in. Yeah, man, I'm going to call you a kama. I'll call you adhan if you want me to call you adhan. Right? He seems like he's gung-ho. Yeah. But when we salam out, and all of the brothers raise their hands to make dua, he tells them, this is bid'ah. This is bid'ah. This is bid'ah. They're looking at me. They're looking at him. They're looking at me. Right? Those kind of fires, you got to put out all the time. So you have to stay studying. You got to stay on top of this stuff. You know what I mean? And so I was like, you know, I just calmed him down. I said, let us finish the prayer. Let's finish the prayer. And I will show you. And then I will show you. And I took him and I showed him, you know, Imam Bukhari has a book known as Adab al-Mufrad. We had that book. And I took it to him and I showed him. It's right there. But that's how he learned. Right? And so that kind of, I just give you one example. It gets worse than that. Right? But I'm just telling you that, you know, so that set the context. Like, I have to stay studying. I have to stay studying. Why don't you do the Raf al-Yadain? In every, you know, raising the hands for every position. Sure. And a brother will come and accuse you of not following the sunnah and and he doesn't have a clue. And you have to be patient, and you have to show him, listen, fihi khilaf. There's a difference of opinion in this. Right? It didn't start with us, it started with the companions. Radiyallahu anhum. Right? Like, you're not going to change the world because of you have one opinion and there's other opinions that exist. Yeah. And so, you know what I mean? So now what ends up happening is this, what leads me to Taiba. Right? This is the segue into Taiba.
You also want to give a quick sentence about what Taiba is?
Yes. So
Yeah.
Taiba, mashallah, hafidhullah, Sheikh Rami, may Allah preserve him and protect him. You know, I wouldn't be here talking to you about anything if it was not for him and the trust that he had in me and the ability, the things that he allowed me to do while I was in prison and when I came home.
Yeah.
Wallahi, I say that, no fronting, no, you know. The Taiba Foundation is an organization that was set up for educating Muslims the proper way in prison. So, you know, it started in 2003. They were actually incorporated as a nonprofit in 2006. And from what I understand, they had like $3,000, a cell phone, and a garage. And that's where everything started, right? Back in 2006. And Sheikh Rami he wanted, you know, he sensed that there was a sincerity in the brothers that came home from prison. If a brother had done 10 years, 15 years like that, and when they come home from prison, he was like, it wasn't all the play that was in, you know, the kids from the suburbs or whatever, you know what I mean? And so he was like, I want to work with this population.
Yep.
And so so that's what he did, right? And you know, today the Taiba Foundation has over 15,000 students in the prison system nationwide, and they're studying. You can't see it right there, but I've got 20 books over there that is the Taiba curriculum. You can study all of the ulum al-shar'iyya, right? The major ones, you know, aqidah, you know, fiqh, tazkiyah, sirah, the ulum al-hadith, you know, the knowledges of hadith, ulum al-Quran, Arabic. You can study all of that through the Taiba Foundation. But before I had gotten that far, you know, I got his phone number from my brother-in-law, and I called him. And he was very patient. Like, I would just ask him, like, a question might have been about the beard or something like that. You know what I mean? And he just broke it down for me. And he just took time, just broke it down. Well, this is the situation. This is this. This is this. This is this. Don't be like this. Don't say this. He just broke it down for me. And then, you know, I would call him. You know what I mean? And I was taking the courses, you know, through Taiba. I ended up memorizing Aqidah Tahawiyah that Sheikh Salik told us to memorize at Zaytuna Institute. I ended up memorizing that. I started memorizing some of the other, you know, fiqh texts and, you know, other things. I was doing all of that in prison. And then, you know, it was the thing that Taiba gave us was a structured way of learning and practicing Islam. And it also gave us a bona fide sheikh to call if we had
questions,
an issue. And that's what we started doing. All right. So that's what happened. So, you know, some time goes on. Obama comes to office. Obama comes to office in 2008. And he issues in 2012 or I think it's 4 years go by. 2012, he issues a administrative decree, right? Where if you have this is at the federal level. So if you had a drug case and you had, you know, you have no violence in your record and you have a long record and whatever, then you got a 2-point reduction, and that 2 point in your scoring, you know, where you are in the system, and you could go home early. So I ended up getting like 6 years off of my sentence.
Wow.
You know, and so, you know, I know a lot of people don't like him, but alhamdulillah, he helped me. So.
Yeah, sure.
He helped me, you know. So, you know, that's how life was. You know, life in prison was pretty much 3 things.
Yeah.
Learning the deen, teaching the deen, and just trying to be faithful to my covenant with Allah.
Yeah.
That's all I was doing.
Yeah. One thing I've recognized, this is a little bit separate from the point, but I've done a couple conversations now with individuals who spent some time in prison, and I also have a couple of like people from my locality who have done time in prison. It might sound might not be the best analogy, but to me, prison is the closest thing we have to the Cave Hira.
Yes.
And it's like, and I've like you were saying, like the people who come out of prison like 10 years later or whatever, have a very different outlook on life the way that other individuals do. I'm also someone that a lot of my friends make fun of me in the regards of fun, like as in like nice fun.
Yeah.
That I'm way too serious, and I'm like, because life is serious. like we live in a time now where things are easy.
Yeah.
Like the Green Revolution took care of our food. The current institutions that we have in America, particularly, take care of a lot of stuff. Someone is suffering at the back end of it
No
somewhere
doubt.
around the world.
No
But
doubt.
we live it because somebody else is suffering.
Yeah.
That's why we don't suffer. So my point coming back to it all is like prison
Yeah.
is the place where you get rid of everything that makes your life.
Tajreed. Like you're stripped of everything.
Yep.
Now,
And given the bare minimum, you're allowed to live
let
in
me
that
say
thing.
this.
Yeah.
Let me say this. Malcolm X said it, right? He said prison can be a university, right? Or it can be like a prisoner's paradise. Prisoner's paradise, basically, he means like you're just going to spend your time playing cards. You're going to be, jaw jacking. You're going to be,
Free food.
you know what I mean? Free food, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no self-development.
Nope. Yep.
Or it can be a university,
Yep.
right? Where you're actually, you're looking at yourself and you're saying, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time doing that. And that's how I know that when you ask yourself gently questions, it will respond. That helped me to understand when the man came to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and said, he was asking the question about birr, about righteousness. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told him, istiftu kalbak, consult your heart. I understand that hadith on a totally different level, because if you truly consult it, it will answer and it will tell you. And what I began to understand, I remember I asked myself a question, like, how did I get here? I genuinely asked myself a question. And it was because I knew that this guard, he had like a 10th grade education.
Right.
But he's my caretaker.
Yep.
You got to get up at this time. You got to go at this time. You can come, you can go, you can't. How did this happen? And I remember I was walking on the yard. I was coming in from the yard one day, and I heard my heart answer that question. And I knew it was about that question. And I heard my heart said, you have to get back to where you were at 8 years old. The purity that you had at 8 years old, you have to get back to that. And I knew I had to work. This was 2007. And it was a mission. Like, I'm going to do all of my awrad. I'm going to wake up for tahajjud. After, I'm going to get for tahajjud, like right before fajr. I'm going to make fajr. And for an hour after fajr, I'm going to do my dhikrs. I'm going to do my qiraat. I'm going to do my salawat ala nabi through dala'il khairat. That was my program. And, just the things that people were involved in, I just didn't have no time for it. I didn't play one chess or checker game the whole time I was in prison.
Wow. So,
Not once. Because I prefer to read. I prefer to study. When I give the khutbahs, that's what you're hearing.
yeah.
That's what you're hearing. You're hearing things I thought about in prison. Khutbahs I gave in prison. That's what you're hearing. People think like, well, how do you come up? Man, you go to prison, you'll come up with the same ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what you're hearing.
That's like you said with Malcolm X. That was a house of knowledge for you, because that's what like people who become sheikhs do. They go to a masjid.
You have to withdraw some kind of way.
For 5, 6 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
Come back, and now you're able to do that.
And now you're able to do
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? Because you have a different lens on.
Yep.
So alhamdulillah, that was what life was like in prison. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I to this day I say this was the best time of my life.
Yep.
This was the best time of my life. It took 3 years to get there, but the next 7 years was a spiritual pleasure that I've never experienced. Never experienced it before. And even now sometimes I miss it. Right? Allah sturna. May Allah cover us, Allah protect us. I don't want to go back, but you know what I mean? Like that was a time, you know what I mean? That I know it was a blessing for me. You know what I mean? The way I was able to study, the people I came into contact with, the stories I heard, the way I was able to help people, the way, you know what I mean? And so, alhamdulillah, I come home, the end of 2015, and I have a whole different monster to deal with. I got to deal with my kids now.
Yeah.
Right? I left 5 kids out here, man. I've been gone for 11 years and 3 months. My youngest, she was 1 she wasn't even 1 when I left. When I come back, she's 12. She's my youngest. And I'm hearing about my kids things I don't like, right? Because I'm very disciplined. I'm very regimented when I come out.
Sure.
Right? And, you know what I mean? I don't want to talk about nothing that got to do with anything other than the way I've been living for the last 7 years.
Right.
And I had to learn, you got to be more flexible than that. You got to meet people where they are.
Yep.
Right? And they were kind of intimidated of me too. Right? Because they're like, we know how he's going to be. We know, we know like he's not going to accept us pretty much.
Right.
But alhamdulillah, my son came and my daughter came, my youngest daughter. And it was a little tussle. Maybe the first 6 months, it was a little tussle. One day she calls herself running away from home, and she runs around the corner, sits on the dirt pile, tells her sisters, I ran away. They tell her mother, and her mother's calling me, talking about, why you my daughter running away? I'm like, it was just because I think she didn't want to go to the Muslim school because I was enrolling her into IOK.
Right.
When I took her there to meet Sheikh Nu'man, she wouldn't even look at him. She wouldn't even look at him. She had her phone in her hand, and he's trying to talk to her. Would you like to come to this school? Because she's coming out of public school. Her education up to this point is all public school. Right. She wouldn't even look at him. You know what I mean? And she's telling me, I don't want to go here. And socialization is very, very important. And I understood that because I was socialized the wrong way. And it had consequences. So I knew I had to socialize her. You know, I knew I had to socialize her. And as soon as I went to IOK, I knew this was the place. And Allah gave us an opening. I put her in there. After about 2 weeks, she loved it. Yeah. And alhamdulillah, she's going through the IOK seminary program. Yeah. She's studying in Egypt right now. She's becoming a hafidha. She's memorizing the Quran. But that was because of the socialization. Yeah. Right? She was socialized into that. So, it was just things I had to do. I had to deal with my kids. I had to get a job. You know what I mean? I had to, I had to figure out life, man. Yeah. And life had changed drastically. I didn't know how to use Google. I didn't know what Google was. I hadn't heard of Google, right? I see people paying for goods, using their phones and watches. And I'm just like, what in the world? Yeah. Like, what has happened? You know what I mean? The cars are a lot lighter, when you're driving them, I mean, my sister picked me up from the airport and she was driving because I had to fly from the East Coast to out here the day I got out. Yeah. And she's driving. She's on a highway doing 65, which, in LA, because I was living in LA at the time. That ain't nothing. You're actually going slow. Get out of the way. You know what I mean? Yeah. She's doing 65. And I'm like, why are you going so fast? Yeah. She's like, but it was, I've been gone for a long time. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to figure it out, man. And I will credit a lot of the successes that I've made to two people. I can narrow it down to two people. Number one, Sheikh Rami Ansor, the founder of Taiba Foundation. Right? After I was home for about a year, he hit me up and was like, listen, you want to write a book? You know what I mean? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And he told me, oh, you're going to get paid this amount per hourly, blah, 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 blah. It's just an introduction to Islam for Muslims who are incarcerated. And you're also going to introduce topics that they need to go on to finish the curriculum. Like explain to them the Quranic sciences. What is fiqh? Who are the, Ashra Mubashirin, the 10 promised paradise. Like, you know what I mean? Like just concepts like that. Yeah. I was like, yeah. And he trusted me to write it. You know what I mean? It's a 217-page book now. You can buy it on Amazon. It's called Islam 99. It's published by Taiba Foundation. So that was like the beginning of an extensive relationship on the street with him. Like we had done different things. Like I went to the Bay Area to fundraisers, and mashallah, he helped me out. Yeah. I remember one time, he called me and he was like, we just got some money, and we want to give it to our students, that are out and can use it and everything. I mean, this man broke me off $3,000. You know what I mean? At a time I really, really needed it. You know what I mean? And then so starting with him, and then I was with Taiba, even if it was part-time, from that whole time up until today. Right?
Oh, you said today, you literally mean today.
Today's the last day. Yeah. Right?
Like today. Yeah.
So up until today. And then even this program down here, I proposed it to him. We went after a grant. We got a grant to be able to hire staff and to run this program. And he just trusted me. He was just like, yeah, do it. You know what I mean? And he let me run it. And I did it for 3 years. But in doing that, I learned everything that it takes to run a nonprofit. Yep. Right? I learned everything. So everything that I'm doing with the Lamps of Light right now, I have to directly credit that back to Sheikh Rami. Yeah. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. As far as being accepted by the community and being understood by the community and being, given a chance by the community, I credit that to the founder of Institute of Knowledge, IOK.
I'm on big.
Sheikh Nutman.
Yeah.
I was taking my daughter there. I was taking my daughter to IOK.
Yeah.
And, so I would come and make dua and then just stay for the rest of the day. So I would be reading my Taiba books, I'd be studying them or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, he walks up to me in the musalla, and he says, "Why do I always see you with those books?" Because he knows Taiba and what it's about and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was just, I was like, I did time. I did time in prison. Like, these are some of the best books I know.
Yeah.
He was like, no, not you. No way.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know my background, you're not going to get it from my speech.
No. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You may get a hint if I get into it with somebody at the gas station or something. You say, wait. There's some stuff hiding there.
Yeah.
Right? But, and, I remember, and I say that because one time my daughter saw me, confront somebody in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Right? And she was just like, I didn't know that side of you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that side of you.
Yeah.
I was like, I only bring it out when it's necessary. Right? It's only, you know what I mean? But I am not afraid of violence.
Right.
You want it? You can get it.
Yeah.
And I know I can get it too.
Yeah.
But I'm not afraid of it.
Right.
Do what you want to do.
Because it only
you know
comes
what I
out
mean?
when it's in the name of
I'm
Allah.
not afraid of it.
Yeah.
And so Sheikh Nutman is looking at me. He's like, no way. Nah, no way. Not you. And it's like, and then he just stays there looking at me. I don't know what he's thinking. Right? I initially think he's thinking, oh man, we got this dude's daughter in our school and he's coming here. Like, I don't know what he's thinking.
Right.
But he's just kind of looking at me. And then he says, I need you to do something. I need you to do something. I don't know what that means.
Right.
2 weeks later, he calls me and he says, I want you to come up to IOK and I want you to talk to the kids. We have a Sunday school, I want you to come and talk to the kids. Just come and just talk to them. They need to talk to somebody who's been through something.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I can do that. That's easy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I come up and I talk to the kids. One of the teachers told me, she said it was like they were watching a movie.
Yeah.
She said, listen, we do this all the time and the kids are always trying to get up and go to the bathroom. And she said, we didn't get one request to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
They really, really enjoyed what you had to say. That was the first time I spoke to a youth group, you know what I mean? And they appreciated my background and my experience and, you know what I mean? That's where it all started, really.
Around what year was that? It was
This was 2000, maybe 19?
Okay.
2019?
Yeah.
Because when I told Sheikh Nutman when I told Sheikh Nutman, he might not remember this, but when I told him I was getting ready to get my master's in social work, he was like, you're going to be big.
Yeah.
You're going to be big. That's what he told me. And I think about that sometimes, Sheikh Rami, actually, I have to say this, he was the one who encouraged me actually to become a social worker.
Right.
I didn't know anything about being a professional counselor. I didn't know anything about it. I knew I wanted to do something in human services. I didn't know if it was going to be case management. I didn't know if it was going to be peer mentoring. I didn't have I just wanted to study Arabic and keep studying the deen. You know what I mean? That's what I wanted to do. When I told Sheikh Rami that's what I wanted to do, he was like, because I was getting ready to graduate and from the bachelor's program. You know what I mean? I was late getting my bachelor's program. When I told him that's what I was going to do, he was like, and I told him I wanted to go to Zaytuna, and I know he has connections up there and stuff like that. So I was like, Sheikh, I want to go to Zaytuna. I want to get my master's at Zaytuna. He was like, Tabari, I kind of know where you are. You know what I mean? That's not going to advance you a lot.
Yeah.
He said, become a social worker. Now at this time, my understanding of a social worker is those people who take away the kids, right?
Oh yeah.
They go into the homes and take away people's kids. I don't know. There's a clinical social worker that helps people solve psychological problems, right? I don't know anything about that. So I was just like, ain't no way. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know that there's a clinical thing, you know what I mean? But I'm on this is Tawfiq now.
Yeah.
I'm on campus a few weeks later and I'm talking to this white guy who's getting ready to graduate with his master's.
Yeah.
And as we're talking, he's just like, man, you would make a great social worker. I'm like, why is everybody telling me to be a social worker, man?
Yeah.
He's like, no, come here, I'm gonna show you. That's when I was like, oh, I had to apologize to Sheikh Rami. Yeah. I just didn't know, man. I just didn't know. And that's why it's so important. I'm speaking to your youth audience now. It's important to have mentors. Your peers are not your mentors. You need people who have gone through things. They understand where life is going. They understand where society is going. They understand where the ummah is going. And they tell you, you would fit in really good right here because of something that I can see in you that you can't see in yourself.
Yeah.
Your peers can't do that for you. Your peers can't do that. They're going to miss a lot of things. So when you go to your peers and say, what should I do? You're asking the wrong person.
Yeah.
You need to go to somebody that has some depth, some experience, and ask them. And that's what I see in Sheikh Rami and Sheikh Nu'man. You know what I mean? Like they're dealing with Muslims every day.
Yeah.
From a point of leadership, they know what's needed.
Yeah.
And so they can help to guide you to those places.
Yep.
And, you know, I'd never given a khutbah out here. I never thought about giving a khutbah out here.
Mm-hmm.
Never thought about it. But when I told another director of a masjid that I had, taught Sunday school at or Saturday school at IOK, he was like, "Oh, we need to get a khutbah from you." I was like, "Y'all know how to give a khutbah?" You know, I was like, "Yeah, I gave a lot of them for 10 years straight in prison." So he was like, "Let's get a khutbah," and that's when it all started. I gave one khutbah. Somebody was like, "Hey, can you come to ours and give a khutbah? Can you come to ours and give a khutbah?" And it just took off. You know what I mean? It took off like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's how like all of this started. You know what I mean? Like, but like I didn't actively seek anything out. It was like actually brought to me. It was people who recognized that I had a special skill set that you can only get through disasters.
Yep.
You can only get through mess. You know what I mean? Tragedy.
Yep.
And they were like, use it this way.
Yeah.
And alhamdulillah, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. And one thing to note about that too is like, there's a very specific reason why the Prophet was the one who got revelation.
No doubt about it.
People do not understand how much, like, if you go through the Prophet's story, and you know this better than I do. The amount of loss and grievances and damage and pain that he went through is, it's insurmountable. And the thing is, it's in every single facet of possible. It wasn't just I lost this person out, right? It's like anyone can connect with his grievances because he lost so much. Whether it be coming to like uncles or children or like parents or relationships or like where he's at with like his hunger, right? Like every single pain point that you can possibly think of. You can connect with the Prophet in some way.
That's right.
Right. So it's like like what you're saying is someone needs to be able to go through this.
I was reflecting on something.
Yeah.
I want to share with your audience. There's an ayat in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, He says, "Ma asaba min musibatin illa bi idhnillah." Like there's nothing that's going to afflict you, except by the permission of Allah. There's no hardship, there's no affliction, there's no tragedy that's going to afflict you except by the permission of Allah. وَمَن يُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ يَهْدِ قَلْبَهُ. Whoever believes in Allah, right, he will guide his heart. And I was talking to one of my teachers one day, and he went into that verse, and I was like, this is it. This is life itself. And basically what he was saying to me was that Allah is saying, you're going to have tragedy. You're going to have trauma. You're going to suffer loss. And that theme is all through the Quran, right? It's all through the Quran. Like, you're going to get tested. Do you think you'll enter Jannah? You haven't been tested. Do you think that life is all going to be easy? No, you're going to lose money. You're going to lose family. They're going to lose you. They're going to, you're going to go through that. Yeah. وَمَن يُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ. This is whoever sincerely believes in Allah, meaning including the qadr. Including the qadr. Some things you just have to get. Yahdi qalbahu. He guides his heart. And the Sheikh was saying, it means Allah will help you turn your tragedy into triumph. Your pain into purpose. Your mess into the message. Your chaos becomes clarity. But it's a conditional phrase. It's a conditional phrase. وَمَن يُؤْمِن بِاللَّهِ. You have to completely believe in Allah. Like, you can't say why like shaitan. This is what jammed shaitan up. When the qadr came down, no, Allah has a whole nother creation and you have to bow down to them. He couldn't accept it. To him, it was a tragedy. and he's still suffering. He's going to suffer. Human beings are like that too. I'm a clinician. When they can't accept what has happened, they suffer longer.
Yeah.
Right? And it's in this verse, it's explaining what has to happen when there's tragedy. Right? We're explaining what has to happen. You know? So it's I just wanted to just reflect on that for a second. You know?
No, yeah. The nature of being human is the tragedy, and having to understand that is the only way that you'll be able to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting because he's also the giver of the tragedy.
Right? You know, right,
so
right,
exactly. The tragedy doesn't come without him.
Without him, that's
So,
right. That's right. Yeah.
You have to understand that the same way that the angels who did accept.
Exactly.
And you have to ask why in the terms of not like
help me to submit, y'all.
Help me get through exactly what you're putting me through, because I know you're putting me through it for a reason.
Right. There's a wisdom. Help me to understand the wisdom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've come at this point. You got now, through IOK and then through the masjids, you're starting to become more active. You're now going to pursue your clinical social worker. Is it a degree or is it a certification or?
No. It's a master. You got to get your master's degree in social work, and then you have to go through the licensure.
Gotcha.
Right, and
And then, so both. I have a question about that. So it's like, where did you end up doing that? How long did that take? And then also, you then got a specialization in addiction.
Yeah.
I don't know the proper degree name for it, but it's addiction related. So, what did that look like?
I knew right away, right? Like, so again, tawfiq. You know, tawfiq is when you want something and Allah wants something.
Right.
And you just find that it's facilitated for you.
Right.
And you don't know how, you don't understand all the means, but it's happening.
Right.
This whole thing was tawfiq, starting with Sheikh Rami saying, become a social worker. Right. So then I actually get accepted into the program. And in the program, from the very beginning, you have to do 16 hours a week of internship.
Okay.
So I was supposed to do my internship. I sold myself as like, no, I did time and I want to do my internship at a place where I can help people who have done time. So they found me an internship there. Right. So the guy who's going to be my supervisor and everything, he goes to the university, Cal State San Bernardino, right up here. Mm-hmm. And he takes all the classes and everything. 1 week that I'm supposed to start, he quits. Mm. And so they don't have a supervisor to supervise me there at that place. A week goes by, 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks go by. Now, I got to make up all these hours. Like, I'm not going to graduate unless I make up these hours. Right. All right. So I'm trying to get into an internship ASAP. Right. So the field coordinator calls me one day and says, listen, I think I got something for you. It's not what you wanted, but it's an inpatient rehab facility for people who they have dual diagnosis. So they're abusing substances and they have trauma, abusing substances, and they have anxiety or depression or whatever. Right. So I was just like, I was afraid I wasn't going to get an internship because they were all full or whatever. But this doctor, he was willing to take me. Now, just check it out. This doctor, his stepfather was Muslim. Mm. So as soon as he knew I was Muslim, he was just like, he understood. He was like, all right, cool. You know what I mean? All right, yeah. Right. And the second thing is he kind of took me under his wing. Right. I could ask him specific questions about Muslims, and it wasn't far away. He went to the Eid, he saw the Salat. He said, he knew, Yeah. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, this was my first time ever being in a rehab, chemical rehab facility. And I already recognized the behaviors because of my street experience. Right. I was just like, you can't tell he's lying. Yeah. You know what's going on. You know what I mean? To the other clinicians, because they don't know. Yeah. Right. I would be like, you can't tell he's high right now? No. Go search his stuff. For sure, he's high right now. Mm-hmm. Because I know it. Mm-hmm. Within 2 weeks, I knew this was it. I knew two things. Number one, I wanted to specialize in addictions. And number two, Muslims need this. I knew right away. That's tawfiq. I wasn't even supposed to be there. Allah guided me there. Not only that, the doctor would take me and show me things. Like he would take me in a room, it'd just be me and him. He'd be like, look, I'm getting ready to get on the call with these insurance people. Just listen to how they're going to try to play me out. And then watch how I respond. You know, because he might have given them an invoice for $20,000. They're saying, hey, we're going to pay you 17. He's like, no, you're not. You're going to pay me 20. You know, and then he would go along, you know, figuring it out, you know. And so he introduced that part to me. And when I told him, I said, the Muslims need this. He was like, yeah, because they end up here. And nobody knows how to help them. There's no room where they can go and make salat. Yeah. They can't eat halal meat. They can't, this is co-ed, we know how important that is, that there's a separation of the sexes and stuff like that. And he just helped me to kind of like work through it. Like, yeah, but he brought up some of the issues, the challenges and stuff too. But it was just, and I stayed there for a year, And that's when the seed was planted for Lamps of Light. That was when it was planted. I was like, Muslims need addiction services. And I wasn't just thinking about substances. Right. I was thinking about the whole spectrum of addictions. So gambling, because you can do it online now. I have a case that I'm working on right now where the spouse has lost $30,000 of her life savings. Right? Her husband gambled it away. You know what I mean? Both Muslim, gambling, pornography, of course. I would say pornography is probably at the top of the list. Really? I get more requests for pornography through Lamps of Light than anything else. Yeah. I was actually going to bring that up later. Yeah. It's at the top of the list, right? Yeah. And so I'm like, we have to work on addictions. Yeah. We have 25 years ago, Muslims weren't thinking about mental health. Yep. It was like a stigma. Nobody wanted to do it. Now it's like the thing. Yeah. And we have all these institutions now that are doing it. You got Rahma Center, you got Khalil Center, you have different organizations that are just doing it. Like it's just two therapists there, like Alme, I believe that's the name of it in San Diego. They're popping up everywhere. It's like the thing now. And what I'm saying is that if we start now, with working with addictions in the Muslim community, we'll have that same effect 20 years from now. 20 years from now, they'll be like, we're glad somebody thought about this. Yeah. Because the problems are just going to keep piling up. Yeah. The problems are going to keep piling up.
What's really surprising, though, is the more I learn about Islam, like, obviously I'm not a scholar, but, like, I try my best to, like, as much as I can. The lifestyle the Prophet lived was the one that attracted the most. But it's almost like in order to achieve a lack of addiction to anything or like be like mentally at peace, you have to let go of this world. Like you have to let go of everything, but no one wants to let go of everything. So this is my personal hot take, but I've almost found mental health to be like the emphasis around mental health, not even like Islamic related, forget Muslims. Mental health generally right now is commodified in this way that's like you can have the world, but you can also have this. Right. And sometimes like that mixes in. And within the Muslim sphere, what I'm seeing now as well, like
Islamic psychology
specifically is hard and fast. Like obviously there's cases everywhere. Same way that I'm not saying that, drugs should not be used, like medicine should not be used. Like obviously medicine should be used when it's appropriate. But I've just recognized the reason why it's so much like a big conversation, why it's so many people are needing it now is because we've just gone so far away from detaching ourselves from the world because we don't understand the way the Prophet detached himself from the world. And so
you're absolutely correct.
But that's like a small Tibia. This is separate.
So let me just say something right here, right? Because what you just described is called Zuhd, right? Taking from the world only what you need. It is a concept. It's just one concept in the science of tazkiyah. There's a whole much more other concepts that if we could take it and distill it for mental health, people would be much better. Yeah. Right? That's what it is. It's called Zuhd. And then you have like all these different scholars writing on Zuhd. Imam Ahmed Hanbal, he has a book. It's called Kitab Zuhd. And he's writing about all those things that instigate desire for akhirah, right? And those hadith, those reminders that keep you away from the world. He calls it Kitab Zuhd. To be Zahir is to you only take from the world what you need. That's it. You only take from the world. And in our time, forget about just trying to stay away from the world. just trying to only take from the world what is lawful is like a major jihad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, but if we could just practice that, we would our spirituality would flourish.
Yep.
You know what I
100%,
mean?
yeah.
Just that. Okay. So yeah. So I went into I went into that program, and I knew immediately. As a matter of fact, I told Sheikh Rami, even before I graduated, I told Sheikh Rami, like, this is what I want to do long term.
Right.
Like I'm working with Taiba right now, but long term, this is what I'll be doing.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to specialize in addictions. I didn't know the landscape. I didn't know what was happening in the Muslim world. I didn't know what was happening here amongst the Muslim community. I didn't know. I just knew that this I know very well because of the drug life. I know what it smells like. If a person's been taking cocaine, I know what it smells like when it comes out of their pores.
All right.
If a person's been taking, like heroin, I know. I can tell by the way they lick their lips. If the lips too slow, they on something.
Yeah.
Right? If a person's smelling alcohol, like I could tell if the alcohol has come out of their pores yesterday and is in their clothes, I can tell he drank yesterday. Right? Like I'm that familiar with it. So when I went into the rehab, it was like I was seeing it through a diagnostic lens, a treatment lens. But this, I knew this, and even the doctor one time says to me, because the patients, they started requesting me. They used to be like, we're going to wait for Tabari.
Yeah.
And most of it were women. And so the doctor pulled me aside one day and was like, listen, man, everybody's requesting you. I don't just tell me you ain't doing no slick stuff. Just tell me I'm going to believe you.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm trying to seduce them, or I'm trying to be a boyfriend. I'm making promises. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, nah, man, I get it. I understand. And then I told him, listen, I done time.
Yeah.
I know this. And he's listening to me. He's like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? So when they're telling me their stories, I know. I understand. I've been there, done that. And so, that's how me and him kind of got kind of tight. You know what I mean? But then I knew I had a knack for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they would come, and even after they graduated, right, and they would still call the center saying, yeah, I want to speak to Tabari.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, okay, this is, so it was like kind of mapped out for me.
Yeah.
So once I graduated, and, I applied for my license and everything, which alhamdulillah, I'm done with that. I just have to take the test.
Yeah.
So make dua for me.
Yeah.
I had been working on lamps of light slowly.
Yeah.
I had slowly been working on lamps of light. And I started going to all of the different Muslim mental health conference, the Black Muslim Psychology Conference, and, the different addiction conferences and things like that.
Yeah.
And now, immediately after I graduated, I was working for Khalil Center. And whenever somebody came with an addiction, they would refer them to me. That told me right there.
The lack of addiction specialists within the Muslim community.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right? And everywhere I went, it was the same thing, right? I've been to, except Minnesota. And that's because of the response of the East Africans to the opioid epidemic. They have kind of started to respond appropriately.
Yeah.
Everywhere else, we're 10 years, 15 years behind. You know what I mean?
What does appropriate look like in response to addictions and specifically Minnesota? Like, what is their response as a community?
So number one, they have inpatient treatment centers,
right,
and they have outpatient treatment centers. Now, right now, I'm just talking about substance abuse.
Right.
All right. Nobody has, correctly responded to the behaviors, gambling, pornography, shopping, gaming, internet, bulimia. Nobody has responded to those properly in the Muslim community.
Right.
Like, we are still at a loss as far as that's concerned. But with the chemical addictions, they've begun to set that up. They're getting grants.
Gotcha.
They're responding, you know what I mean? So that nobody else has to die.
Right.
Because I had one friend tell me that he's like, man, this is the 4th janazah I went to this week, man, just overdoses in the Muslim community.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to act like it's just like, because what I'm saying is that it's partly the Muslim community's responsibility and fault, right? Because we don't have enough institutions to help and protect our youth. We just tell them, no, make salat, go to the masjid, read Quran, you're going to be okay. No, they're not.
Yep.
They are up against what humanity has never been up against.
Yeah.
Never. Humanity never had a device in their hand that contradicts their worldview in every such way. Never. It has never happened.
Yeah.
If you were in your village, you were safe.
Yep.
If you were in your town and the town was Muslim, you were safe.
Yep.
You know, you can be in your village, in your town, in the most isolated place on the world and see the worst things on this handheld device.
Yep.
How do we respond to that?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't responded.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying we have to recognize the time that we're in.
Right.
And we have to respond correctly with not just the chemical behaviors, but with the, not just with the chemicals, but with the behaviors too.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Because it has long-term consequences for families, but also for communities.
Yep. And this new generation of wealth is being built on you as a commodity, whereas in the past it used to be the items were the commodity. So farmers used to
Exactly.
make money because they made food. Even 10, 15 years ago, engineers used to develop softwares and these softwares would do things. But now we have companies and entire corporations that exist because we need to hook this person.
Exactly.
And just hooking the person is what makes us money.
Exactly.
So now whatever you're going to do on that screen is designed to hook you in.
Exactly.
And sometimes could be beneficial. Like Tartil AI is a Quran AI app that hooks people in because it teaches them, you recite and it corrects your errors. Same strategy, but obviously you're learning the Quran now because you have a very easy teacher who, like, if you mess up, okay, it'll alert you messed the word up.
Right.
I consider that a beneficial use.
Yes,
But,
of course, yeah.
Majority of the time, why is Instagram free? Why is pornography free? Why is Twitter free? Why are these things free? Because you're the commodity.
You're the commodity.
Right. So,
right.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying with the way addressing the behavior aspect.
The way I describe it is, it's your heart is for sale.
Yeah.
They want your heart. If they have your heart, the limbs will follow.
Yep.
So protect your heart. But the question is, how do we help our youth to protect our hearts?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like we haven't given enough thought.
Yes,
and even if we are thinking about it, we haven't moved out on it.
Yep.
And so that is what Lamps of Light is.
Yep.
Lamps of Light is a response to that. And it's like, I want to leverage my experience. Because when you sit down, listen, man, I'm a chaplain at UCLA.
Yeah.
We have almost 1,000 students there, Muslim students.
Yep.
Right? Sometimes they don't want to come and talk to you if you're holier than thou.
Yep.
They don't want to talk to you because you don't understand.
Yep.
They don't want to talk to you. They feel like you might judge them. But once I lay out my story, they're lining up like, oh, we know he ain't going to judge us.
Yep.
He got too much baggage and he got too much dirt in his closet.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Come and lay it out. Tell me what it is. And so I'm your messenger. I'm coming back to the Muslim community in SoCal and I'm like, it's worse than you think.
Yeah.
It's way worse than you think. Don't think just because she's walking around in the hijab that she's not looking at pornography.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, she's addicted to pornography.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't think just because he's going to the MSA that everything is okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't think just because he's the MSA president, he doesn't have his own qualms and fires.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's the biggest thing I realized, especially being MSA president. And I'm just like,
yeah, man.
man, you have like the expectations people have, and I'm like,
Yeah.
or even the false, like, oh yeah, another story, another time. But oh my god,
Yeah.
yeah, no, 100%. There's
And so,
Yeah.
so I'm your canary in the coal mine,
Right,
but you know what I mean? I'm just coming and alerting you. Hey, something's wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we have to do something. So that's what Lamps of Light is.
Right.
Lamps of Light is like we're trying to respond correctly to the times so that we can save our youth.
and then lay out the steps, right? Like you said, it took a while for you to figure out how to properly do purification and how to take the house and actually quell the embers so that you're able to rebuild the proper way.
Right.
And we don't have those discussions, and that thing it takes time. Like it takes a long time.
I mean, one of the first people, inshallah, because alhamdulillah now we have a space now and we have, inshallah we'll be able to bring on some clinicians.
Yeah.
And we'll be able to, but we have two targets, two immediate targets.
Yeah.
Number one, the leadership, the Muslim leadership.
Yeah.
We're going to tell them, look, this is what's going on. These are the numbers. This is our response to it. If you hear somebody that needs help, let us know.
Yeah.
Number two, the schools,
Yeah.
the Muslim schools. We're starting right here in the IE, Corona, Riverside, Rancho. We're going into the schools. We're going to teach the teachers about addictions, how to recognize it, how to get them help.
Right.
If somebody needs early intervention, we'll do the early intervention. If they need treatment, we'll do the treatment.
Right.
And if we can't treat them, we'll refer them to higher levels of care.
Yeah.
So that's you know what I mean, like that is what I mean by responding correctly.
Yeah, a very,
Right.
very preemptive design approach that's very intentional
You
with
have
the way
to.
it's, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Listen, I go to these MSAs.
yeah,
I'm talking there.
yeah,
Kids pull me aside all the time. You know what I mean? Or people call me,
yeah,
or they have a crisis and then they call me.
yeah,
They tell me what's really going on at home. They tell me what's really going on with their boyfriend situation, girlfriend situation, whatever.
yeah,
And I'm just like, okay, it is no more veneer.
yeah,
We got to get down. We got to get down to business.
Yeah,
We got to
yeah.
get busy.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And so that's what Lamps of Light is.
yeah.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah. I didn't really fully understand, even myself, what it's supposed to be, but it makes a lot more sense now because
Yeah.
reality is you're living in a Western world. There's no reason why the Western statistics don't apply to us.
Yeah.
This is not a Muslim country, all right?
So that right there is a double-edged sword,
Yeah,
right? That right there. We do have lower
Yeah.
rates of addiction in the Muslim community,
yeah.
right? Much lower. The problem is
It's non-existent.
because we act as if we're doing good because it's lower.
Yeah,
And so the casualty rate is very, very high, right? The Muslims didn't think that it was important enough. You know what I mean? Like that's my feeling.
Yeah.
The Muslims were like, we don't have to worry about that right now. We got other things that we have to worry about.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, the cost of ignoring this is hidden.
yeah.
You won't know until this guy gets married to this girl.
Uproots the whole family.
And because he's addicted to pornography, he has a baby with her. She finds out about his porn problem, right? The family's about to fall apart.
Yeah,
This is happening in every masjid, every single masjid. This is happening in amongst our youth. So I'm like, you wait for 10 years, 15 years,
yeah,
you will have no community
yeah,
because everyone will be leaving. It'll be a fallout.
yeah,
There's a fallout. All the families will be breaking up because we didn't address it head on. We didn't think we needed, porn anonymous in the masjid or whatever.
Yeah.
We need it.
So even though the rates are lower, again, we're not just numbers. So like the percentage might be lower, but the percentage is still hundreds of thousands of people,
Exactly.
and that's still hundreds of thousands of families. So and with these things, like from what you're saying as well, it's not just the person who gets affected; it's the 3-4 people around and their entire
Exactly.
family and everything
Exactly.
breaks apart. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then there's a saying too. I forgot what emperor general it comes from, and it might have been a Muslim emperor in general. You probably know the saying better than I do, potentially. But it said, in order to destroy another empire and country, you just have to make their population addicted to pornography or to nakedness or something. Like, it was a very old classical saying, but it was like, make them weak.
I think it was like one of the Stoics.
Somebody
said that.
Make them weak,
Yeah.
and through weakness, everything will break.
Yeah, everything will
Right?
break. And
So-
and that's what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Right? That's exactly what we're seeing. So, and I'm saying that as a clinician because
Yeah.
I get a lot of calls, where maybe the father's reaching out for the son, the mother's reaching out for the son,
Yeah.
the spouse is reaching out for the other spouse.
There are nowhere else to go.
They have nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I get international calls. That's how I know how bad it is.
Yeah.
I get calls from overseas,
Yeah.
Muslim countries, several Muslim countries.
SubhanAllah.
They're just going, Muslims addictions. We pop up. Our website pops up.
Yeah.
They call us. They're desperate. I'm just like, if this is one person that found us, there's 1,000 that didn't.
Yes.
Right? And then there's another 100,000 that's around them, whatever. But we just have to tackle it head on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have to tackle it head on. And I just feel like, my why is part of my Tauba.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I have these experiences. I know how this works. You know what I mean? You know my story, so it's not going to be no judgment.
Yeah.
Now let's get to work. You know what I mean? And something else that drives me too. Rasulullah, in a hadith narrated by Imam Tabari, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the most beloved of you to Allah are those who are most beneficial to His dependents. So if I can be of any benefit, then perhaps I can attract the love of Allah to myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that drives me, especially like when, you know what I mean, I've got a waiting list. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't want to do any appointments this week. Yeah, but you may help someone.
Yeah.
You don't know what you'll say that will help them.
Yeah.
You don't know what you may give them, a resource you'll give them that may help them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think Islam is the one religion where being greedy about the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a good thing. Because
Yes,
Sheikh Muzammil was telling me, he does talks at our school too.
Okay.
And he's telling me why he does these talks, and also sometimes like no, like most of the time no cost, like whatever he's trying to do, like as a sheikh, right? And he's like, yeah, man, I'm greedy. I'm greedy from the mercy of Allah. Like, he said if you're given the chance to teach and you're teaching, you're one of his like one of the chosen people, like not chosen, but like one of the one of the ones who have been given a responsibility that can grant them mercy, right? Because you're spreading that when you're spreading his religion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've
Yeah.
always thought the only.
I mean, we have to be akhirah centered. Right,
Yeah.
right. Like, as soon as you start getting a couple of these grades, you realize, man, life is temporary.
Yeah.
And okay, so it's all coming to a close. What do I have there when
Right.
it closes?
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So, alhamdulillah, you're doing the work. Yeah, you have your list.
Yeah.
Any more
I have a
questions?
small list. I
right,
think we
let's
got
see.
through most of the questions that I wanted
Okay.
to ask, but you did mention in a talk that I was like listening to on YouTube that and we kind of already covered this in a way, but any behavior that you do for pleasure or temporary pleasure that causes a detrimental harm long term is something that you can't give up, and something that you can't give up is an addiction,
Yes.
right? So it can be anything, like you said, from shopping to pornography to anything that's like repetitive and harmful in the long term, right?
Right.
But I'm curious because, and I mean this in a very serious way, because obviously you probably know this in a very serious way, but a lot of the Muslim community does not acknowledge this in a serious way, is when, for lack of better words, the aunties and uncles and maybe your fellow peers say like, related to things, you know, whether it be gossip or, you know, shopping or like, you know, any of these other like lower minute, I'm not talking about like hard addictions like cocaine or like even pornography. I'm talking about lighter addictions, right? That these are things that are just human. It's just for fun. It's something that makes people feel good. You know, for someone who doesn't like, you know, how does someone come to the realization that they are potentially addicted to something that is dangerous? For example, right now, it's almost weird because there's a promotion in the Western sphere of things that used to even be taboo a while back. 20 years ago, pornography was still in even for the like
Shameful,
not
isn't it?
yeah for the non-Muslims.
Hide it, yeah.
And it was something. Now we have softwares like OnlyFans and girls who get promoted like on a like a global level, making money, making fame, and it's
You
almost
take the average person.
yeah, it's almost
Put
something
them
to
in front of the world to make
perfect.
money. It's crazy.
It's almost like something to be proud of, right?
Yeah.
So it's not long before, you know, even for people who watch pornography, they're gonna come down to this thing that's like very normal. I mean, it's kind of normal for people. Like I've seen someone who's going to like doing psychology and like or psychological research. I've seen a lot of things say that pornography is not dangerous. Like the Reddit forums, right? They're not.
No, it's very dangerous.
It's very dangerous. And the thing is that's
You know erectile dysfunction,
yeah,
which
yeah.
comes from that.
Yep.
It's irreversible.
Yep.
So far,
Yep.
all the clinical studies, it's
Yep.
irreversible.
Yep.
So if somebody says that, they're lacking.
And they're saying it. They're saying it
information
from a perspective of this is
pleasure.
pleasure, and as long as it's in balance and you do it like every now and then. I'm like, no, I mean you're doing something that is unnatural, like watching other people do that.
Yes.
And that's something that arouses you. But the reason why it's a very long-winded question. But my question is, how does someone recognize they're even doing something like in an addictive manner, even though it might not be classified as addiction by the community around them? And the best example for the Muslims currently is we see actions as like cuss words, like bad language. It's become way more common in like Muslim communities. Parents don't crack down on it as like hard as possible, but it's an addictive thing because from what we understand about like mental health research and certain analysis through EEG research and brain fMRIs, that language actually does have an addictive nature to it because it's a hard word. It's something that brings temporary pleasure, and we know that if used in a certain way, because it means something to human beings, it can actually hurt other people and hurt yourself as well. So not just have to be that example specifically, but all I'm trying to say is, how does a young Muslim individual figure out that they are addicted to something? How do they go into this mode of reflection, which I think, again, Cave of Hira prison is great at, but how do they figure themselves out? Like, what am I addicted to? And this is the thing is actually like destroying my life. Like,
Right.
you know, this is actually what's leading to me to be angry with my parents and yell at my parents, or this is what's leading me to be always on my phone or whatever. Like,
Right. I would say a few things.
yeah.
All
Sorry,
right?
long question.
Yeah. I would say a few things. Number one, you will not come to the conclusion
By yourself.
you won't come to the conclusion without self-awareness. You won't. You know what I mean? You really you have to reflect. And when you reflect, you have to reflect against a standard. And for us, the standard is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? His companions, right? The righteous imams after them, and you know what I mean, all the way down. Like you cannot be the standard, right? You have to have a standard outside of yourself, and that should cause you to reflect. That's one of the reasons why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Al mu'min mir'atul mu'min." The believer is a mirror for the believer. Because as soon as you come into contact with another Muslim, you're going to say, oh, he doesn't cuss, I'm not going to cuss. He doesn't, say this, I'm not going to say this. Or I know that, right? It's the mirror. You know, when you look in the mirror, you see what's wrong.
Yeah.
You look and you say, let me clean up. Let me get that off. Right? So you cannot be the standard. We do that. We make everything subjective to our level. That's a problem of the time. All right, that is a problem of the time. Is that, you know, we want everybody to be at this same, you know, low level, and no one can possibly be better than that.
Yeah,
that's where, you know, this debilitation, this this chronic malaise sets in. All right, when that happens. So that's the first thing I would say. You know, look at a higher standard. And of course, Rasulullah is the highest standard. But even before you get to Rasulullah, you're going to find righteous people that talk about cuss words. All right? You can figure that out by just halal and haram.
Yeah.
Now, really what you're asking about are habits that can lead to an addiction.
Yeah.
Right?
This is a preemptive approach.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? So the Arabs have a saying. They say, كُلُّ شَيْءٍ آدَاتٍ وَلَوْ إِبَادَاتٍ. Right? Every single thing is as a result of habit, including ibadah. Like, you don't just wake up and you just start making 5 daily prayers and no slack. And it doesn't work like that. You have to habituate yourself to it.
Yeah.
How did a person habituate themselves to that? Whether it's cussing or overeating or whatever it is. How? Right? So we have to look at the habits. We have to look at the habits and know how to break those habits. Now, the essence of addiction is fulfilling a need by external means. You're fulfilling a need, like a spiritual need or a psychological need, using external means. That is the essence of an addiction. The essence. What you just mentioned was the technical. All right? That's the technical. But the essence, so if somebody says, what is salat? You'll say, technically, it's bowing, standing, prostrating, sitting, saying things, right? That's just the technical definition. But salat, essence of salat is connection to Allah. And all the bowing and everything is just trying to get there.
Yeah.
So the essence of addiction, if a person wants to say, am I addicted to something? It doesn't matter if it's a behavior. It doesn't matter if it is a chemical. It could be something that's not classified as, an addiction. No one would ever say, playing checkers too much is an addiction.
Right.
Right? But if you are self-aware and you're playing checkers is to distract yourself from a spiritual need, you're addicted.
I see.
Right?
Yeah.
If you are, playing, a game or whatever, if you constantly have to buy a certain brand because it makes you feel good and nothing else can make you feel good like that.
Yeah.
You are taking an external means to fill this gaping hole, which can never be filled by external means.
Yeah.
You have an addiction.
If you're posting on social media because there's a current feeling that you get when you get those likes or the comments, which are not likes and comments you get just walking around on a regular day basis.
That is the essence
You're addicted.
of an addiction.
Right.
Right. And so the question is, okay, well, what are you addicted to?
Right.
You're addicted to the dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Right. You that can't be filled any other way. You know what I mean? You didn't take care of the real problem, which is filling that hole with something that's spiritual or emotional or psychological. You didn't deal with that.
Yeah.
Right. And so you're trying to fill it with outward means.
Right.
It cannot be done. And so you will continue to do that thing. You know? So you're addicted to the same apparatus that you get from sniffing coke, you're going to get from those likes on social media. It's an addiction. You know what I mean? So the person has to be self-aware. They have to look deeply. They have to say, what is it that's broken that I need to fix?
Yeah.
Right? So in other words, a person, I'll tell you how to get to the root of it.
Right.
All right? A person has to ask themselves, what does that behavior or that chemical actually do for me? They have to ask themselves, if you're posting because of the likes, what does it do for you? Right? And they may have to spend some time there. No, I just like it. Yes, but why do you like it? It makes me feel important. You know, it makes me feel important. They're telling you right there that they have low self-esteem. Somebody didn't tell them when they were growing up that they were important. Someone didn't accept them. Someone didn't validate them. This is a way of getting validation. So that's the real problem. You got to deal with that.
Yeah.
And then the needing the likes on social media, that will go away.
Yeah. And that's truly where Islam comes in, because Islam has addressed how to have familiar relations, friendly relations, where you do feel valued within your community and you actually have a beneficial value.
Yes.
But Islam does not have no address. Like, it does, but it does not have a clear address for social media posting. Because these things come and go. There's phases in the history of man. There have been always things that come and go.
They come and go, right.
Right. So it's like you have to...
But this is the worst phase.
Yeah.
This is the worst of times.
Of course.
Right? When it comes to losing your heart. Because we have all this productivity.
Yep.
We have all of this, money now. We have all of this technology, makes life easier.
Yep.
Right? We don't have better people.
Yep.
We are not producing the quality of people. Yeah. Right? And that tells you what's wrong with this time.
Yeah. And obviously also every generation after the Prophet has been worse than the generation before.
Exactly.
So it's like, it's inevitable that we're going to get...
It's going to get worse
and worse.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Alhamdulillah. Yeah, man.
Okay. No, I think that's very helpful.
Yeah.
As a very key starting point, because right now we don't even think about like the reflection aspect of things.
Yeah.
We don't even choose to be self-aware. We actually choose not to be self-aware.
Yeah.
So I think what you said specifically about, are you doing checkers because there's something else that's being avoided, or something, right? Or are you doing checkers because you're at home, you're spending some time with your brother, and you're playing games together because it makes you connect and like laugh, right? So it's like there's
difference.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Big difference.
And of course, checkers is not cocaine, so you cannot contextualize those two in the same thing.
Right.
So just doing cocaine is an addiction in nature, because it's also chemical addiction. Yeah, subhanallah. I think it's really interesting, and I just want to bring up a last fun point is there's a machine like electro. I'm already forgetting, even though my research is EEG machines, but it measures the electrical brain activity in your brain, and we do a lot of research in like meditation. So where your brain's at when you do that, different responses, what happens when you introduce music. One thing I haven't done yet is the Quran. So I'm very in the future, in the next 3-4 months, I'm keen on trying that out, because in my opinion, the electrical response will be a lot lower than it will be with music. And this is a very, very hypothesis. It's not science-based. And if anyone listening to this, just understand this is what I'm trying to get to, is I believe like Islam.
No, I believe that too.
Yeah.
Right? Because the Quran is a dhikr.
Yeah.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'in qulub." Like, isn't it so that the remembrance of Allah, it brings tranquility to the hearts?
Exactly.
Right? And also in the Quran, He says, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنُ مَا هُوَ الشِّفَاء وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Like we have sent down in this Quran that which is a cure.
Yeah.
It's a cure and a mercy for those believers. I guarantee you'll find exactly that.
Because Islam is not meant to give you those big dopamine hits that you get massively addicted to.
Yes.
Islam is meant to connect you to the rest, to you, and the way of practicing Islam is multitude-fold, whether it's like helping the orphans, being close to family, going into observing nature.
Yes.
Because all of these things are things that give just enough dopamine, just what you need,
just enough,
just to be at peace, right? And the rest of it
naturally produced, you know what I mean? Not artificially produced.
Yep, and at high levels. Otherwise, we would be... Honestly, this sounds terrible, but we'd be pulling out the Quran the rate at which people at Instagram. Because if there was something with that much dopamine in us, it would be naturally that addicting. But it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a balance. Right? So.
Inshallah.
All right. We've been going on for like 2-3 hours. So, and I also got to pray. So, Jazakallah khair for, coming to the podcast, telling us your story, talking a little bit about the nature of addiction, as well as what we go into. I'm sure we'll have another conversation down the line sometime.
Yeah, let's do it.
There will definitely be people very interested in hearing more of what you have to say.
Inshallah.
So,
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair.
Yak.
Assalamu alaikum everyone for
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
and I'll be catching you guys on the next episode, inshallah.
Inshallah.